and welcome to another episode of Reap the Spoils. I'm Mark Sullivan.
I'm Delaila Lugo.
I'm Jason Kwasnicki.
Reap the Spoils. That's a monthly spoiler cast. You know that if you're tuning in again, but for those who aren't tuning in, this is your first time. Reap the Spoils is a monthly spoiler cast, semi-monthly. We try to do it monthly.
The holidays get chopped up a bit, but we're back in business, and this February business is going to be a booming because there's a lot of shit coming out.
Oh my God, is there a lot of shit coming out? But we're talking about only one game, and we talk about that game after we play that game and we beat it, and then we come here and we talk about it and we spoil it. Hence, Reap the Spoils. So, if you have not played the game that we're going to be talking about, I suggest you pause this episode and go play that game, go beat that game, and then come back to this episode and listen to us talk about it. Or, I can't control your life. If you really, really want to go ahead and just listen to us spoil the game for you, and then either go play it or not play it or whatever. If you want us to spoil and ruin that first experience for you, be my guest, as long as you give us the download, give us the listen,
Yeah.
The world is your oyster, I suppose.
Maybe you don't want to play this game and you just want to prepare for a future game.
That's true.
Which, the early reviews are coming out now, so
yeah. Well, we're getting ahead of ourselves.
Yeah, we are.
Delaila, what's the game we're talking about?
Horizon Zero Dawn.
Yeah.
And also the Frozen Wilds DLC.
Yeah, I was about to start singing like the theme song, but like I guess I don't have to. Yeah. Jesus Christ. This is gonna be a nightmare to edit. Yeah, we're talking about Horizon Zero Dawn and its expansion, The Frozen Wilds. If you have a PS4, I really, really would be surprised if you don't already have this game. There was a point where Sony last year or 2 years ago was giving it away for free if you had a PlayStation. They were just giving it away.
For the DLC is $3 right now on the PlayStation Store, yeah.
Or you just get the complete edition on sale. That's always on sale. You can get it on PC. That's probably on sale because it's been 2 years since that came to PC. So yeah, like I would be shocked if you have a PlayStation 4 at the very least and don't have this game already. But like, yeah, play it before you listen to this, but listen to this. So yeah, we're gonna be talking about Horizon Zero Dawn and Frozen Wilds. Are we ready for a brief history lesson?
Yes.
Jason,
I'm ready.
You hold on to your butts. Here we go.
Hold on to your butts.
It's got like some robot dinosaurs in there, so Jurassic Park reference. That's kind of fitting. Okay, development on this game began in 2011 after the release of Killzone 3. Killzone, a franchise I really like, developed by Guerrilla Games, the developer of this game. First-person shooter franchise, and I'll be bringing up Killzone again later when we kind of talk about Horizon, because with these two IP under Guerrilla's belt, it's really clear where Guerrilla's strengths are, and I kind of want to speak to that as an avid Killzone fan and a player of this game. But what I found interesting was that Horizon Zero Dawn, which was pitched by the art director, I'm sorry, I'm going to butcher this name, but Jan Bart van Beek.
Sounds good.
Yeah, that's it, yeah.
Because Guerrilla is a Dutch studio. I'm sorry, I'm not the most proficient in Dutch names. So, yeah, apologies if I butcher.
J's or Y's, that's all you need to know.
Yeah. So it was pitched by him, and it was actually about 40 pitches were given in the studio, and that was considered the riskiest, or this was considered the riskiest, which I thought was interesting. Because you'd think a game about a bunch of tribal people fighting against robot dinosaurs and animals would be pretty cool, like on anyone's meeting.
Yeah,
that's what hooked me.
Yeah, same.
But yeah, so thought that was interesting. The art director, Jan Bart van Beek, who pitched the game initially, and then the game director was Matthias de Jong. Again, apologies if I butcher the name. I'm trying my best. But yeah, development began in 2011, and the game released for PlayStation 4 on February 28th, 2017. a week before The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, which was a big topic of I know. I'm going to say right now, Jason, you are limited to bringing up Breath of the Wild.
The only reason I would bring up Breath of the Wild in the context of this conversation is because I feel like because I was really hyped on this game at the time it came out, but I feel like a lot of it had to do with my simultaneous how disappointed I was with Breath of the Wild.
We'll bring up Breath of the Wild at a very specific point, because that's at that point is where these two games were very often compared to one another. And I think the comparison is somewhat valid, but we'll talk about it when we get there. So yeah, February 28th, 2017 for PlayStation 4. Frozen Wilds was released later that year on November 7th. The complete edition probably came out a year later or so. The game came to PC in summer of 2020. And yeah, that's all I got.
Nice.
It also got a PS5 patch sometime last year.
Yeah.
To give 60 frames at 4K.
Mm-hmm.
Which is pretty nice. Pretty nice if you got a PlayStation 5, except for a couple things that I'll bring up later, but
the PC, the PC was, I heard it was rough at first, but I think they fixed it.
Yeah. I mean, it was also PlayStation's first PC port at the time, so they definitely didn't have the PC support and infrastructure they do now. So like the God of War port just came out for PC a month or two ago, and it released in a great state. And a lot of people were really happy about that. So yeah, they've come a long way on their PC support. And and I'll also add, if you're one of those people that's like a Sony fanboy and is like vehemently forever pissed that that Sony is supporting putting their games on PC, stop. Just stop. Like, who cares? Let people enjoy things. It's a fucking 5-year-old game.
The games are so old at this point.
Right.
Like, who cares?
It's not like they're bringing these games day and date to PC. Like, it's a game that's not really getting much sales on its original system anymore. Like, grow the fuck up. You'll get over it.
Yeah.
Sorry if I offend someone, but also I don't care. So yeah, with that out of the way, yeah. Last time I called our audience fuckers, and this time I'm
that Jason Salt rubbing off on you.
Yeah, let me just sit back and let you take the heat this time.
All right. Are we ready to start spoiling this fucking game?
Yes.
Let's do it.
We're like 8 minutes in and we still haven't done that. All right. Why don't we start with the game's namesake, Project Zero Dawn, as it were. What'd you guys think of that big reveal with Project Zero Dawn?
I thought this was the most interesting part of the story, honestly. A bit confusing, because I feel like, we'll get into it later, like my biggest issues with this game, which is the dialogue. I feel like the way that they talk about these things is really boring, and it's hard for me to like really pay attention.
You know what? Fuck it. Let's just get into that right now, because yes, that is like the biggest problem I have with this game probably is just they'll start having a conversation, and a lot of it comes down to the really poor facial animations, how they look so stilted and so lifeless, and it's just like these very awkward looking faces talking at one another, but like they talk so much, they don't have expressions, and it's just so uninteresting,
and it's very unnatural. Like Erend coming up to you like, "Hey, my name is Erend. I'm commander of the Asuram. I'm a useless drunk." Wait,
yeah.
I'm paraphrasing quite a bit there, but I get your point.
That's the gist of what he says to you.
Right.
Like, why would you just say you're a useless drunk to this person you just met?
Yeah, and I only beat this game a couple weeks ago, and I beat it when it came out, but I beat it again, obviously, because it's been, close to 5 years since I played it. I needed a refresher, and like even playing it a few weeks ago, the amount of times I just tuned it out because there's just nothing interesting happening. There's just two talking heads talking at one another with lots and lots and lots of words. It's
in
just
this game's defense, though, because you mentioned animation, like facial animations during cutscenes and dialogue. I will say that the best and most emotional scene that conveyed actual character to me in the entirety of the game actually takes place in the prologue.
Yeah.
And it's the scene where a young Aloy, well, you actually get to choose what you do, whether when she gets the rock thrown at her.
Oh yeah.
There's no dialogue. She just gets a rock thrown at her. You get to choose what to do, but in her face and the action, depending on which one you choose, whether you throw it at him or you just throw it in a manner that like embarrasses him. That conveyed more emotion and more character develop. Well, not development at that point, but showed more of the character than, in my opinion, anything else in the game.
What I'll
Agreed.
let me correct what how I put this then, because there's two different kinds of like conversation, right? There's cinematic cutscenes, like
Right.
that one, where I think, and like there's some semblance of a dialogue there because you have a choice to make, but it's still very much a directed cinematic.
Yeah.
And those are great in this game. Those are fantastic.
Mhm.
Anytime we get one, but those are few and far between.
Yeah.
Right.
Most conversations, it's just two people standing still talking at one another
In game,
and
yeah.
in game and like
Or even
it,
worse, it's not even people talking to each other. You're listening to fucking recorded dialogue.
well, that stuff doesn't even bother me because that's like that at that point you still have direct control over your character. It's mostly the conversations when it's just two people
Mm-hmm.
standing still. The camera keeps switching between who's talking
Yeah.
and focusing on them, and they just like will randomly smile when they're in the middle of saying something, and they only have like a handful of expressions and they don't really move, and it's just awkward. And this is something I actually think I mentioned to you guys in our Slack channel. I thought Frozen Wilds was far and away the best content in this game because they actually improved on that. There was a side quest where you have to go help this guy in like this in this it's like a reservoir. I can't quite remember exactly what you do, but like it's like that kind of cutscene, right? Where it's not a cutscene, it's like they're the two guys that are or two people standing and talking to one another, but he's moving, he's
Mhm.
walking around, he's moving his arms, he's actually being expressive,
Yeah.
and it was just far and away the best conversation I had seen yet in the game, and it came in the expansion.
Yeah.
Well, even the main quest in the expansion, the main characters of that plot line, they all had understandable motives that came through subtly in their dialogue. There was emotion being conveyed both in the face and in the writing. And with one very, very, very small, nitpicky, noticeable exception, the writing was in world and felt you felt like everything was flowing naturally.
We'll get to that. I don't
Yeah.
want to hear what you're referring to, but we'll get to that when we talk about that the games
It's a
or the
very
actual
small.
game.
It's a character that in the main quest alone just pops up once.
Okay.
Mm.
But yeah, to bring it back to what Delilah was saying was that there was a lot and it was kind of hard to follow and it was like a lot of it was wholly uninteresting. It's just there's what I want to say about Gorilla is they are great at world building.
Mhm.
They're amazing at it.
Atmosphere, yeah.
Well, not even just that, but like lore. You know, the amount of lore they put into Horizon, it's the same with Killzone, but you
Yeah.
wouldn't know that because Killzone is a first-person shooter where you're a military dude bro trying to stop the space Nazis, right?
Yeah.
Like that's basically the gist of Killzone, but there's pages and pages of lore and world building and like a history over like 100 or so years within that world, and you would never really know it because it doesn't really present itself well, and
Well,
it's not the most easily digestible thing. It's the
to
same thing with Horizon to me.
to segue back to the original question of Project Zero Dawn,
Yeah.
I think you just hit the nail on the head for me for why this story, um, it's executed fine, um, but the story in and of itself is fundamentally flawed because it chose to be a post-apocalyptic story. Um, and it decided to focus the entire story on how the world ended rather than the how the people there are actually dealing with the fact that the world ended. There's
Mhm.
almost like of the entirety of the main storyline, there's maybe 10 to 15% of it dedicated to what's actually going on in this new world, as
Hmm.
opposed to the rest of it, which is just a thin plot dragging you from
to find out who her
excavation
mother
site.
is, which
Yeah,
is
exactly.
just a plot piece to get to the bigger reveal
You
of
see,
Project Zero Dawn.
and part of that, I'm gonna put this up front and fully admit, part of that is my own disappointment from before the game even begins on the loading screen. I was super hyped on this game way back when those first concept art photos leaked. The idea of like a tribal society fighting like robot dinosaurs, like they could have done anything with it. It could have been like fucking like Heavy Metal magazine, like a random human fictional culture on a distant planet fighting alien robots or whatever they wanted to do with it. But they went with a more quote unquote realistic,
right.
grounded setting where it's a post-apocalypse, and they came up with this elaborate reason why there are robot animals and dinosaurs, and that narrows the band of verisimilitude. And honestly, they focus so much on having to explain that I lost all interest or care for what was going on in the actual world as it is now. So by the end of it, it's like, why the fuck am I even fighting for it?
I mean,
Yeah, I feel like you're spending all this time getting to know all these tribes and all these characters, and Aloy's on a quest to figure out who her mom is, which you find out she's just a clone of her mom. All for
or a
that big
clone of a
reveal,
lady.
a clone of a lady, exactly. and and none of that, like, and I hate to compare this to Mass Effect because there's no comparison, but because I played it side by side, I can't help but compare how like the dialogue supplements the world building. And I feel like Horizon Zero Dawn, like you said, Mark, has really good world building, but none of those conversations happen in dialogue, and when they do, it doesn't happen in an interesting way. So I couldn't, like, even though I knew it was a big reveal, it was more because of how it, like, I thought of it rather than how it was presented to me. And I wonder how they're going to navigate that now that people know what's going on, because I guess the excuse for that is no one really knew what was happening, with the exception of like Silence and now Aloy and a few other people involved. But I hope that they improve upon that in the sequel.
Overall, I feel like I'm not so down on the fact that a large part of the game was focused on what happened in the past versus what's happening in the present, because even the player has questions, right? Like with the story setup that they have, and
Yeah.
you want to know what happened for things to get this way. You want to know what happened in the past. And I think the answer we got, I mean, I feel like my opinion of it when I first played it was kind of like, oh, that's it. And I feel like that was because a lot of people were really praising this story, and a lot of people were really high up on it. Like, oh, this is one of the like best gaming stories. And when I finally got the truth, it felt like it was overhyped, right? Like I couldn't help but feel...
I predicted most of it from the loading screen. When the loading screen says this is Earth,
he predicts everything.
Jason Nostradamus over here.
No, I didn't I didn't like foresee the Zero Dawn thing. I mean, if you're going to do a twist with it, I guess it's an interesting twist, but at the same time, like, I don't care. I care about what's going on in the world now. But regardless, as soon as it says in the loading screen, this is Earth, I'm like, oh, so humanity got wiped out by machines. A story that's been told before.
Well, yeah.
A lot of times.
I mean, yeah, it's like, I mean, that's a pretty easy guess, though. I feel like anyone could guess that. But
yes, I'm not saying I have some special prescience.
Yeah, the what isn't.
I've just
really
seen enough movies and read enough books.
Yeah, the what isn't the question. The how is the question. The thing that's lingering on everyone's mind.
Yeah.
The how in the context of this game's universe. How did it happen? And it happened because this fucking like Iron Man in this continuity, this dude that just sells these weapons and shit, the weapon machines go haywire and he can't do anything to stop them.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, Elizabeth Sobek, this I don't even want to know what to call her, like a soft, I don't even know if she's a software engineer. Okay.
That's what she is. That's what she is. Like, she's just she's the smartest person and can figure out how to save the world in like a day and just get all the scientists together.
Right, I'm just talking about her. Yeah, a scientist. Let's just call her a scientist. Right. Okay. So she comes in and has her plan.
Exactly. She knows how to. She can make complicated AI. She knows everything about
Yeah,
geology, biology,
but she
virology,
can't. But she can't. But she can't.
environmental, whatever. Yeah.
She can't fucking fix Ted Farrow's mess of a situation. Well, I mean, she kind of can, I
Well,
guess.
she can't just prevent him from being able to take over it, even though he caused the entire problem, which is a major.
Well,
I don't know
yeah.
what you would call that plot hole, or like just it doesn't make sense. I don't know.
I, who knows? I mean, it's a bit of a contrivance, but maybe we'll find out how he was able to do that
Maybe.
in Forbidden West. You know.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, we still don't know the whole inciting incident with the present day plot of Gaia Prime destroying itself and Hades trying to awaken all these dormant machines is that this mysterious signal was sent 20 years prior, and we don't know what that signal was or who sent it.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah, if
complete
there's anything
unknown.
interesting, if there's anything interesting that came out of all that lore, it was the AIs themselves.
Yeah, and they're all
At least for me.
no, I agree, and they're all named after, or most of them are named after
Greek gods, yeah.
Greek
Mhm.
gods, Greek deities, and they all have like a specific fitting purpose. Um, I, th- I forgot, even though I only played the game like a few weeks ago. Like, let's talk a little more about Ted Faro and how much of a bastard he is, because he decided to the reason everyone is tribal is because Apollo was the AI that was responsible for teaching for all of humanity's knowledge,
Yeah.
and he deleted it before
Which makes no
everything.
sense.
Which do they explain why? Like what his motivation was?
Yes, his motivation was that history would repeat itself, right? If they were to give the new generation all of the knowledge that they had, they would just repeat the same mistakes. So he thought he was doing them a favor of deleting it all.
Okay.
That's the basic gist of it.
Mm.
Which I
I
don't
mean, it
know.
made
I
for a
think
cool setting if that's the
yeah, and I
explanation.
think and I think that's a good way to explain it. This dude is already in over his head. He at that point was having a massive mental breakdown because he's essentially responsible for the end of the world. I don't fault him, or I don't fault the writers for thinking that it would be reasonable that he would be so vain as to go and just delete it all because he genuinely believes and is totally positive that humanity is doomed if they have that knowledge, that it would
Yeah.
all just happen
I guess
again should they have it.
the only I guess normally I would let it go. The problem is that this storyline between or involving Elizabeth and Ted Faro is like the most fleshed out storyline in the game. So if like
Yeah.
there was something way more important and prescient going on in the actual real world, then maybe I would be like, okay, whatever, it's just an explanation.
Yeah. um I guess let's roll. We can roll right into the AIs, and like this is kind of the present day threat, is that mysterious signal that caused Hades to kind of, or really all of the other AI, because Gaia was the core, right? And
Mhm.
she had control, or it had control over all the other systems, and this mysterious signal made them all become self-aware and independent of her, or it. Sorry, they're AI. They're not really gendered. Um,
I think Elizabeth referred to Guy as she as well, if
Yeah,
I'm
I
not
mean, just
mistaken.
because they provided
Yeah.
it with a female voice, so I guess,
Yeah.
but um, it's besides the point. So Hades being the protocol that's meant to wipe the slate clean if things go wrong, now independent, that's kind of a problem.
Yeah.
And it starts making and awaking these hostile machines, and that's kind of where how we get our setting. Um,
Right.
and also what causes Aloy to be born, because Aloy is kind of a contingency plan.
And this is one of the problems I have with the game is, Aloy seemed like she discovered the little focus piece by accident. but the game is presenting it as if she was supposed to find that, and like she was part of the bigger plan. And I just like I didn't catch any explanation
it
for
it
why they presented it that way.
No, you're right. It definitely is like a very convenient plot point, almost too convenient, that the clone of the woman who kind of basically saved the world happened to find the thing that would get her on that path. There's just this cave so close, and she gets a focus in that cave at a young age. Like,
Yeah.
what if she never
Just
found
out of
that?
curiosity.
Right. It's no, I agree with that. That is a bit of just it's almost too convenient.
Yeah. Like if they would have presented it as like
Yeah, and
maybe
it is
someone set
oh,
her up
sorry.
to do that. No, it's okay. If they would have
Right.
presented it as someone set her up to do that and actually explained that, then I would have been like, oh, okay, I can see that a
Or
little
like,
more. But
like what if Tirsa, who by the way, Tirsa total bro. Like
yeah.
she's awesome. Um what if Tirsa, like what if when Aloy emerged from All Mother Mountain when she was born, and she had the focus already with her, and Tirsa took it and waited until she like grew up to give it to her.
Mm-hmm.
That would have been I feel like that would have been a more believable way
Yeah.
of going about that. But I also suppose that she didn't necessarily need a focus to want to know who her mother was,
Right.
and thus to put her on her path. What the focus really did to kick things off in the story was it allowed the Eclipse to spy on her,
Mm-hmm.
and thus led to the massive like genocide of the Nora people during the Proving,
Mm-hmm.
or at the conclusion of the Proving.
Right.
So, I guess while we're on the topic, let's talk about Aloy and her as a character. Not her as a clone, but her as herself. How did you guys feel about Aloy?
I love Aloy. Like she's a badass. The voice acting's really good, but there are times where she just feels too good. Like Jason mentioned in the beginning of the game, when she's a kid, she conveyed like so much emotion, especially if you choose like the hand option, like the fight aggressive option,
Yeah.
like to throw a rock back at the kid or something like that. I actually preferred those options more throughout the game, because my first time I did the heart options, this time I did the rock,
Mhm.
the bad options, or aggressive rather. Not
Yeah.
they're not bad. um but sometimes she just seems too nice considering the circumstances. Like she's just not emotive enough throughout the game, especially when she's an adult, considering everything that's happening around her. Like you just found out that like you don't have a mom, like actually, and this is your whole quest, and you're kind of just like, oh, okay, but like what about this, and even Silence, I think, makes fun of her for that. He's like, you just found out all this information and this is how you react to it.
Yeah.
That's my thing with Aloy, is that in the first 5 or so hours of the game, there's a lot of potential there. There's an obvious story arc they're setting up of her trying to find a sense of belonging, but the entire story, because it focuses so much on Elizabeth, it like it seems like Aloy's character almost grows this unnatural zealous attachment to Elizabeth,
Well,
and tries to transplant Elizabeth's character, or at least not character, but like motivations onto Aloy. Whereas I feel like a more natural way to take the story would have been, well, I don't have a real mother. I have to find a sense of belonging amongst these people here that we should be focusing the story on. I don't know.
I think it I think it becomes, well, she wants to know, who's her mother, where did she come from,
Yeah.
why was she born, um and when I feel like that only becomes she only becomes so attached to Elizabeth once she realizes the reason she exists
She
is because
exists,
of
yeah.
Yeah.
Elizabeth. Elizabeth is ostensibly her, like, almost surrogate's not the right word, but she's essentially her mother, because she's a
She
clone
created
of her.
her in a
Yeah,
way.
right. And once she realizes the gravitas of who Elizabeth was, what she did for the world, she's got big shoes to fill.
Yeah.
Aloy talking, and I feel like that's kind of believable. You know, you find out where you come from, and you realize, can I ever live up to that reputation? I mean, granted, no one in the world knows besides her and Silence, but like, she knows, and she feels an obligation to live up to that potential, to live up to that standard. um so I think from that regard, and I don't disagree with you that once we get into the nitty gritty of what happened in the past, that really takes over the majority of the plot, and it kind of takes away from Aloy and really the world's development.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it really feels like that first like stretch of like, what is it, 5 to 10 hours where you're just in what is it called, the claim, the eastern part,
Yeah, like the Norland, I'll
the
just call it,
Norland. Yeah,
whatever you want to
it,
call it.
it's really all about her finding acceptance within the Nora tribe and that. And then once she actually gets it and like becomes a seeker, it's like she just kind of fucks off and leaves. I mean, yes,
Well,
there are a few main story missions, like what is it, a total of like three, I think, that center around things going on like in Meridian, and there's one that also has to do with the Nora tribe. But
yeah,
other
and I
than
think
that,
that largely comes down to the structure of an open world game. You
Right.
know, like
yeah,
any sort of dissonance you get from you have this quest, but there's also this quest you have to do, and then this one you have to do that are important but kind of unrelated to the thing that's actually sent you out here in the first place. That's just kind of open world game design. And we'll talk more about this game's approach to an open world a little later, but I definitely agree. What I want to say about Aloy is like, a lot of her, she's an inconsistent character, right? Like,
yes,
when the story demands it, she is really cool and badass, and is a good character. But when it comes to other things, like the conversations we're all such big fans of, she'll be talking to one person and she'll be really kind-hearted and really nice, and this is without any player agent or
With the
interaction.
choices.
Yeah, this is without any choices. She'll talk to somebody and be really nice and kind-hearted and helpful to them, and then she'll talk to somebody else and be like, ugh, you're annoying, I guess I'll
Right.
help
yeah.
you, whatever.
It's a weird in between. They're trying to tell a cinematic story, as is kind of what Sony's first party is known for at this point.
Hmm.
But at the same time, they're trying to create a player insert character to a degree, and it just feels off at
and
times.
I feel like there's time there. Yeah, I feel like those times aren't often, but there are definitely times where they try to do that with her, and I feel like you already have a good character. You already have the bones of a good, memorable character there. Why not just lean into that?
Yeah.
And I think the best moment with her character, since you bring up when she was a kid, I think the best character moment with Aloy personally is when she finds out the truth. She enters All Mother Mountain and finds out that she's a clone of Elizabeth, and she walks out and everybody's praying to her, and she's like, the emissary of All Mother or whatever, and she's just like, I'm not yours, like, fuck
Right.
off. You're not gonna, first you banish me and then you're gonna worship me? No, I
Yeah.
absolutely not. I think that was a really, probably the most powerful moment in the game, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, definitely. And I wish they didn't give you the options, the dialogue options, especially for Aloy, because like I said, I felt like the time she was aggressive is when she felt most like Aloy. Not to say
Hmm.
that she presents as like this aggressive character, but I just felt it was a more realistic reaction to what was happening around her.
Especially given the world that she was raised in. And that's another
Exactly.
thing, is that there's a not just her, with a lot of the characters, there's conflict between the world they're setting up, this tribal society that has lost all knowledge of the past, and a break in verisimilitude in the way, the mannerisms and the way they behave and react to things sometimes, and the way they speak about things. It doesn't feel like it should feel. The people should be behaving like it's the fucking Age of Conan, like. And if it's weird sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, like I hope that my hope is for Forbidden West is that they just lean into Aloy being her own character and not trying to shove in these choice moments of like you could be really nice or you could be really smart
Yeah.
or you could be really mean. Just like no, write a good character and just leave it at that.
Absolutely.
But otherwise, I think she's cool. I think she's definitely memorable
Oh yeah,
and
100%.
overall a very good character. Apparently, this is another thing I found out was Sony was initially apprehensive to have a female lead character for a game. They didn't think it would be. They didn't think it would sell well. They didn't think it'd be successful. So
Well.
how far we've come. I think I saw that this game lifetime sales at this point has reached 20 million, so that's pretty good.
I think Aloy as a character is a lot of people's like favorite female protagonist in
Yeah.
video games.
I mean, you know what? Forget Fortnite because like everyone's being added to Fortnite. Aloy was added is the only like third party character to be added so far to Genshin Impact, which is
and Monster Hunter.
Oh yeah, there wasn't there was a Monster Hunter thing, wasn't there?
Yeah. And I feel like something else maybe.
It actually is interesting to think about that because it says you said in the history development began in 2011. Think about what the massive games were. That was what the end of the PS3 Xbox 360 life cycle.
A few years before the end.
Yeah, so that's like Gears of War, Halo,
Nathan Drake.
Nathan Drake, the big third person dude bro shooter. Not dude. I'm not trying to diminish those games. They're great games,
Right.
but
I know.
And it's just funny because like what you just said. At this point, it's like almost the complete inverse. Almost every main character is a female now.
I wouldn't say that. I would say more main characters are more vulnerable, more emotional. Like they're actually given
even Kratos.
Yeah, right. Well, that's actually a perfect example. Like look at Kratos. He throughout the entire original Greek saga, he was just angry. That was his one emotion. He was a very one note character.
I'll fight you on that, but that's another podcast.
Yeah, that's another podcast. I know what you're going to say, and to an extent I agree with you, but the way they presented his character was very one note for the most part, and then that changed.
Yeah, the game just had a different tone than
right.
the one.
I agree with that, but anyway, to get back to this, yeah, it's just fun to think about, interesting to think about.
Yeah.
I want to talk more about Silence.
Best character in the game.
Yeah, hands down. When he gets introduced, like he's a mystery, and he's constantly keeping himself.
Anatar, for those of you who don't know, said he's Anatar. For those of you who don't know, Anatar is Sauron's elven form when he tricks the elves into teaching him how to forge the rings.
Okay.
And he corrupts the Numenorians.
Thank you. That was our Tolkien lore lesson for the day. Silence, yeah, he's like constantly keeping you at arm's length, and he's just kind of they're both using each other, and I think that's a really interesting character or relationship dynamic, right? They're allies out of convenience, and they're not really enemies, but they're not actively friends.
Yeah.
Silence knows that because of who Aloy is, she's able to get access to all this knowledge, and that's all he wants is knowledge. That's what he's after most in the world. And Aloy just wants to find out what the fuck's going on. She knows that he knows a lot, so they're kind of using each other, and it leads to a lot of really good banter. It leads to some really great unique chemistry that this game doesn't really have anywhere else. And I go ahead.
Can I just put this in real quick? Is it too far of a hot take to say he should have been the villain? Like that should have been the twist that he was using her to gain using her to gain access to technologies to use in modern day political conflict.
But I think that's too predictable. I think the fact that he wasn't like the main villain, I feel like the fact that he was just all he wanted was knowledge, and he was kind of an ally of convenience. I find that to be much more interesting than if he just
I
turned
just
turned
felt like it
Cody
kind
into
of
the
turned
villain.
him into a plot device at times, though. Even though it results in a lot of, like you said, good banter and good characterization, like he's still the device by which, hey, Aloy, you can go here now and discover this.
Yeah, sure. Delilah, sorry, you seem like you want to
No,
say
I was
something.
just gonna ask Jason if he watched the post-credit scene.
Yeah, did
Yes,
I
I did.
told you to? Did you watch? Okay,
Okay,
Yes, I
yeah,
did.
okay,
Yes, I
good,
did.
good, good.
That's why I
yes,
said, yeah.
right. And I actually thought the first time I saw that scene, I actually thought that he was secretly the villain all along. But now I understand that not really. No, he had just architected and set up this whole thing to ensure that once Aloy defeated Hades, and I think we can say that Silence pretty much knew that she was going to do it,
Yeah.
that he would be able
Yeah.
to capture the AI kind of as a captive audience to tell him everything.
Yeah,
Mhm.
He wants to
he's a
know.
very Odinic character, and it's even represented in his character design, the way he has all that shit like
I hate it.
in his body. You might hate it, but like
Makes me
it's
itchy.
meant to correlate with Odin. Odin sacrificed his eye for a drink of mead that gave him great wisdom and knowledge,
Yeah.
and
Mm.
then he wandered the world and had people do tasks for him to achieve his aim. That, it's an archetypical mythical character. I think that's why he's so much more. Even though we know so little about him, he's so much more memorable and likable than most, if not all, the other cast.
Mm-hmm.
But in a way, like I feel like Aloy should aspire to be like Silence because of her role in this world. Like he's literally doing everything he can to understand like what was lost to knowledge for humanity, and I feel like she should in a way want to be like that as well. Like not just ally with him to figure things out, but like actually seek knowledge so aggressively like he is. He won't stop at anything for knowledge. Like that's literally the
But
point of
that's
his
that's
existence.
yeah, but that's his downfall. And without saying the game, to another game Mark and I just played, another character from mythology, Hermes, Reach for the Sun.
Mm.
Yeah.
Let's not go to, I
Yep.
don't want to accidentally spoil something for a whole other
But I'm saying,
audience.
I think that's the implication they were going for with that end scene, and with a lot of the conversations that Silence and Aloy had towards the end of the game about his kind of ruthless pursuit of knowledge, was that it would have consequences.
And
Right.
hey, let's even like go into his backstory a little bit, because that gets this is another case. We talked about this a little bit with when we talked about Ghost of Tsushima Iki Island, and how you can go to Iki Island really early in the game, but I feel like you're almost doing yourself a disservice by doing that, because there's lots of stuff that gets referenced in that expansion that you wouldn't get unless you were further in the main game. And I feel like it's the same thing with Frozen Wilds. You can go to Frozen Wilds before you even meet Silence, but knowing Silence and having an understanding of who he is as a character, and having him like actively chime in and talk to you through your focuses, um like you get a lot of backstory. You find out that he was seemingly one of the what are they called, the
The
not
Banuk,
priests, yeah, well he was one of the
the
people that have the,
Conclave, or whatever.
like the wires in there, like the one of the people that have the
The
wires going through their
shaman.
skin. Shamans, yes, he was a Banuk shaman at some point. And like you find out this backstory where he actually fooled them because he just wanted to get knowledge,
Mhm.
and that all the people that vouched for him were mysteriously gone when he was gone too. So it seems like he infiltrated the Banuk people after forming the Eclipse, which is another thing I totally forgot about his character. He was the creator of the Eclipse.
Yeah.
They're your main antagonistic group throughout the
Mhm.
entire game, which is it's just crazy. This he's such an interesting character.
Right.
He's really is the best part of the game's plot.
Mhm.
And I hopefully I assume
We better see a lot more of him. Yeah.
Yeah, I assume we're gonna see a lot more of him. I don't know for sure, but
Yeah, I hope so.
And
plus,
that's
I mean, with the ending,
sultry voice.
I was about to
yeah.
say that sultry Lance Reddick voice. You love to hear it. Go ahead,
Would you
Delilah.
I
like
mean,
a Would you like a bourbon, Mister Wick?
I was just gonna say, considering the end credit scene, they have to, at least in the beginning of Forbidden West, explore like what he did with
Yeah,
the Hades
yeah, because
AI.
like that was a clear like once we saw that scene, like I knew we were getting a sequel. Like well, I knew that they were planning for one, right?
Yeah.
Whether or not we get one, it could be another Days Gone situation
Mm.
where Sony's just like, yeah, nah. But like that was the setup. Like the bones were there, and like yeah, I hope that gets expounded on, that gets continued, because it's interesting shit, and he's, like I said, he's the best character in the game.
Yeah.
Um, any other? I mean, that we already talked about Gaia and Hades. I don't know if there's anything else we want to
Can
talk about with them.
So I'm still confused after 2 playthroughs of this game when it came out, and what exactly happened with Hades?
Okay, so what you mean, like at the end?
No, I mean,
Its role?
Why did it start corrupting everything else
So,
to begin
because
with?
there was a mysterious signal that got sent out
Oh, that
and
was
made.
before. Oh,
That
okay.
was 20 years, yeah, about 20 years prior to the
Okay.
game's events. A mysterious signal went out,
I thought
and
Hades sent the signal. Okay, my bad.
no, he didn't send, or it didn't send the signals. We don't know what sent the signal. I hope that we find out
Yeah.
that information in Forbidden West, but some mysterious signal
Ted
got
Farrow,
sent
he's still
out.
chilling. He froze his head in like in Futurama.
Yeah. Okay.
Hey man, he was a
Things are going too well for
genius
these people.
villain.
Gotta fuck them up.
He's like Andrew Bezos. He like just he's got his rocket ship, his colony waiting, freeze him, cryo
That'd be
freeze.
great.
So yeah, just to give a quick sum up of like how Hades got all fucked up is, that signal made all the AI go independent of Gaia. Gaia tried to stop it, but was kind of too late and basically blew itself up, and as a contingency made Aloy a clone of Elizabeth to try and fix things,
Hmm.
and as a desperate move, a final act of desperation. And then Hades is just trying to Hades is using the eclipse, which was formed by Silence to gain more knowledge of the old world. Hades is using them to take control of these long dormant destroyers, those big motherfuckers, um and destroy the world again, because that's that's its function, is to wipe the slate clean.
Yeah.
And if it achieves it, then everyone dies again.
Yep.
And with Gaia gone, I don't know that everyone would get resurrected again. So
Yeah.
that's kind of that. Um, let's just talk about I want to talk about a few more things. One, I want to talk about Rost. Did they do him dirty, do you think?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
He dies and then is like never mentioned. Actually, no.
Well,
I think there's one sentence that mentions him again.
so here's the thing, right? Like, you make of Rost what you make of him, basically. Like, there's a grave back at his house, and you can go back to that regularly throughout the game, and Aloy can talk to Rost's grave and just keep him posted. It's like this is where a little bit of like that role playing comes in, where like if you want Aloy to be a little more to grieve a little more, like you can go visit Rost's grave and tell him about everything that's going on
Mm-hmm.
and whatnot, or you could just forget Rost ever existed. You never have to go back to his grave and talk to him. You never have to do any of that. And also, this I found really frustrating, because I didn't remember why Rost was in exile in the first place. The game never tells you explicitly.
Didn't it say he chose exile? And I think
There's
it
so
implies that he chose exile to take care of you.
That's what I
No.
thought too, yeah.
No. So, all right, I guess I'll explain this real quick. Sorry, I'm going to be talking a lot for, I guess, the next few minutes. Is if what at towards the end of the game, after you walk out of All Mother Mountain and everyone's like, "Oh, praise be to Aloy," you can talk to Tirsa, and I forget what allows them to talk about it at that point. I guess because they just all believe her to be like the resurrected god or whatever. So Tirsa's like, yeah, I guess I can tell you because we were sworn not to tell why Rost exiled himself, but I guess we can go ahead and tell you now. Rost had a
Yeah,
family.
no, I know. She says that he lost his family. Yeah,
Yeah, well, it's a long conversation where Rost had a family. He had a wife and a child, and some bandits came and raided and murdered them, and he became a Death Seeker, which is basically a seeker that can leave the Northern lands, but basically for revenge. Um, and sought out every single bandit that came and killed or had a hand in killing his family and took revenge on all of them and then
Mm.
came back. But like I think that in doing so he was forced to become an outcast, and
Mm.
he chose that himself, but that's the basic gist. But the game never explicitly tells you that. You really got to seek that
see,
out.
that in and of itself is more interesting than any of the shit with Elizabeth and Ted Farrow.
No, I can't.
I'm sorry.
I think that it's a shame that the game doesn't make an effort or like more of an effort to tell you it. Yeah. And then of course the way they tell you it is through one of those really dull, boring conversations where it just bounces around
That
Tirsa
apparently you can
talking.
completely pass over. Yeah.
Yeah, it I didn't know until I got the Future Press strategy guide for Horizon Zero Dawn. And I actually I want to plug that, and I recommend it to anyone that really liked this game because it's really thorough. It has a lot of information. It has concept art. It has developer interviews. It has lore roundups and story explanations. And it's like the reason that I knew, like, oh yeah, if you talk to Tirsa at this very specific point in the game, like she will tell you what happened with Rost's
That's a
past.
shame.
Yeah, I agree. I think it sucks.
Especially
They
because they create so much emotional investment for Ross in the beginning of the game.
I feel like they don't do enough.
Well, yeah, it was very short, but like you could tell
Mhm.
they tried.
They tried. Like
Yeah.
I don't
Well,
know.
here's
I feel
here's
like they
here's the
could have done a lot
problem.
more.
I think the reason why we keep coming back to the prologue and how much better it was at storytelling than the rest of the game is because once, like Mark said earlier, once they get into that whole open world aspect, and once they start trying to introduce choices and stuff, they're trying to do two things that are at what's the word I'm looking for? They're at odds with
At
each
odds.
other.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, and like you said, you can go back to the grave and visit him, and it kind of that's the kind of thing that needs to be in dialogue as Aloy. If you want Aloy to be a character, she needs to reflect on the fact that the only person that she was allowed to talk to growing up died to protect her
Right.
and his life and what it means to what she's doing now. Like that's something you need to do.
Do you guys feel like this game's side missions added to the story or took away from it?
All right, I guess we'll roll right into all the other characters. Let me read off some of these.
I don't even remember
Okay.
half these people you listed, by
Yeah,
the
at
way.
the
I was
final mission,
You
when
ruined it.
you're
You
about
ruined it.
to
That was
take out
Go ahead.
Hades, it's like there's people there. There's like Varl. I'm like, who's Varl?
That was
I
gonna be my
literally
point.
didn't
I
know.
was gonna read off all these names. I was gonna ask, okay, how many of these people do you remember?
No.
Because like we got Tab, Petra, Aaron, Sona, Varl, Talana, Uthid, Vanasha, Alita, Aluki, Naman, and Nakoa, and that's just some of them. And like some of them are main story people, some of them are side story people, but like I don't know if it's a lot of it has to do with those conversations and with those side quests. And like a character like Talana, she's memorable because
Who?
she's
Mhm.
well, you didn't do any side content.
I did
Um
some, and I did it. And when I originally played it, yeah,
yeah, 5 years ago. Okay, so Talana was one of the people at the Hunter's Lodge,
Oh,
and she was you in doing the hunting grounds, you become her thrush. And there's this whole side quest plot line around the Hunter's Lodge and trying to take down Red Maul, who's like this big dangerous thunderjaw that's killed a whole bunch of people. And like that side quest line is really memorable, and Talana herself is really memorable because it's a side quest line, right? There's several quests, there's several steps, you're talking with her a lot, you're interacting with her a lot. She's memorable. Most of the side quests don't add much because it's just one-off characters, the same with the same outline of quest design. Go here, scan with your focus, follow a trail, scan something else, follow another trail, you fight some bandits or you fight some machines, you follow another trail, you find the person, you turn in the quest. You know,
Yeah.
it's very very cookie cutter, and sometimes there's variations, sometimes those things are swapped around, but like they're mostly not interesting side quests because they're just one-offs, they're the same thing, they take a long time, and the conversations are really dull and hard to follow, not because they're complicated but because they're boring.
Yeah.
So sorry, I just went on a really long
No,
tangent,
I
but
mean you're
yeah,
right. You're right.
that answers your question.
I honestly, the first time I played this game, I was so intrigued by the world and just the gameplay period, which we'll get into. That I kind of, even though I listened to all the dialogue, I was interested in it just because I was interested in the world. But then when I replayed it a second time around, I was like, I got to skip all this shit. Like it was just really boring. They said things in ways that could have been said in like two sentences instead of like
Hmm.
10, you know?
Yeah, because you'll talk to an NPC and get your quest, and then you'll have like four things you could talk to them about, and like it's stuff that could be summed up really quickly in just like a few sentences, but they go on and on and on, and it's just like it's never interesting enough to really hone in on.
Yeah.
It's just like there's such a thing as too much. Less is more, and that's a lesson this game really needed to take. Instead of the amount of side quests that there were, which wasn't like a huge amount, like I would say it's like somewhere around 25 side quests,
Yeah.
like if but a lot of them were separate. If you had more side quests, like I think to compare to another Sony first party game, Ghost of Tsushima, all of its side quests don't take long, and the ones that are more important are part of side quest lines. It's the pertaining to specific characters, and that's like I feel like that's a lesson this game needed, and hopefully it happens in Forbidden West. Hell, and I would also say we did an episode on this game too. Days Gone did like a
Mm.
lot of the open world story like story progression much better because it would have these plot lines, these separate plot lines, multiple all over the place, but like they were all pertaining to very specific characters and had a very clear beginning and end, and like they were just more interesting to follow than a lot of the stuff in this game. And granted,
Yeah.
these are games that came out years later after this one, but like I hope that I hope that lessons were learned and that Forbidden West. I hate to be like I hope
Well,
Forbidden West is better than this game, but like I
yeah,
do.
but we see based on the evolution they had from the main game to the DLC how much better that was.
Yeah,
So I only have hope that it'll be even better than that.
and I do think a big part of that is like Frozen Wilds like had a much narrower scope, right? That area was much smaller. I feel like it wasn't even as big as like the Norland area. It was much smaller than that, so you could have a lot more focused content within that smaller space.
Yeah.
Um,
But even just like you said, the character movements and the expression in their tone of voice and stuff like that was just so
yeah.
much better, which really helps with the dialogue.
Yeah. So to double back to like that list of characters that I named off, like yeah, the most memorable ones are obviously Aaron, because he's not even a side quest character; he's like part of the main plot. Varl, kind of, um, because they have him up at the beginning of the game, and then he comes back for a little bit at the end of the game. Uh, Teb is just like I don't know. He's the guy you
your
save when you're
simp.
a kid. Yeah, he's your simp. Um, I think for a side quest character, and we spoilers, I guess, mild spoilers for Forbidden West. Petra is returning as a character, so like I kept a closer eye on Petra when I played through the game again, and like yeah, she's a cool character. But they didn't. They should have made a side quest line involving her to make her more memorable. But she's like a
Is
really cool
she
character.
the one from the trial at the beginning?
Yeah.
Uh no,
No? Am I
she's
confusing her?
she's the Oseram woman, and there's the side quest where you make this like you make this gun that like sucks up these like fireballs and
Oh,
fires them out, and
Oh,
like
I was confusing her. Never
she's
mind.
the reason you'll have that gun at the end of the game, for the final confrontation.
I
I
don't
think she
remember her.
shows up regardless if you did her side quest, but
yeah. Well, no, she didn't show up at all in this playthrough, but I remember the side quest when I originally played the game.
okay. Maybe I'm wrong. And like another character, Uthid, like he was a guy that was he was accused of doing something in the Shadow Karja, and like they were trying to kill him, and like you went and helped him, and it was this longer side quest line. He was more memorable because of that. I don't remember who the hell Alita or Aluki or Naman are, and I just played the game like a few
Yeah.
months ago. Like shit.
Yeah.
So yeah, that that's my thoughts on the side quests.
Besides like the dialogue, I just want to say, and obviously we mentioned facial animation, but a lot of the NPCs look the same. Like they all have weird eyes, like the same weird eyes.
I mean, they try to make them look really unique. Yeah, I don't know what
Like
they were
they
thinking with
add like
these.
different skin tones and different hairstyles and outfits, but like their eyes, I feel like is what helps me remember them the most. And when they all have the same eyes, it's kind of hard to remember them.
Okay. Yeah, it's like, yeah, okay.
They all look possessed. They're like,
Yeah, I think that's an engine thing. That's something I kind of noticed too. I think it's because aside from Aloy, pretty much every character, the animations are almost automated and fit to the model.
I
mm-hmm.
mean,
It's not like individually animated like you might see in other more story focused games that have much smaller casts or an open world whatnot.
hey, we
Yeah.
can't talk shit on the Decima engine though. Death Stranding used that, and all those characters were memorable.
True.
But they
I
might
that
have actually
that
gone on and
comes.
taken the time. I don't know. It's
Well,
speculation on
no,
my part. I have no idea.
I think it largely just comes down to design, right? Like character design. Like I was being facetious about Death Stranding, but the reason those characters in Death
They're
Stranding are really
mocapped.
memorable. Well, not even that. It's and like name a Hideo Kojima game where the characters weren't memorable.
Yeah.
You know, like
Right.
his the effort he puts in to make his characters, larger than life, to make them super memorable, to have like these very intricate and detailed backstories that like makes them stick out. That's not really present here. So I just bring that up just because both those games use the same engine, the Decima engine.
Yeah.
So yeah, last thing I want to talk about, and then we should talk about Frozen Wilds' story. Let's talk about like the enemies. We already talked kind of about the eclipse. I just realized that my word processor auto corrected Karja to cargo, so we've got
Cargo,
the
yeah, I noticed that.
the shadow cargo here.
Yeah, I noticed
We already
that.
kind of talked about them. I the main guy I want to talk about is Helis, who is just like the most throwaway, useless villain.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
He's just like I remembered that he was like a thing like 5 years ago when I played the game, but I was like, what did he do again?
He
Why
just
was he?
The
yells.
sun has said it will happen. Okay. Cool story,
Yeah,
bro.
like he was like, I guess it kind of comes full circle because he's the one that almost killed Aloy and was kind of responsible for Rost dying. So Aloy winds up like killing him in the end. But like he's just like the de facto leader, I guess, of the Eclipse. And is like the new person being used by Hades to exact their will. And like, I don't know, he's just kind of useless. I feel like they could have done a lot more to make him antagonistic, other than just being the stand-in villain, the stand-in human villain, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know. but I felt like he should be brought up because he technically is kind of like part of the final boss of the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's talk about machines real quick. What were your guys' favorite like machine, design wise, fight wise?
Initially, like before the frozen, honestly, the Frozen Wild machine, the last boss is my favorite machine in the entire game.
The
It
fire
should just
claw.
an elbow drop on you. It's so
Yeah.
badass. But before the DLC, in between, like the birds, whatever they're called,
The big one or the smaller
the
ones?
big ones,
Stormbirds.
the Stormbirds. There you go.
Yowza.
And also the Thunderjaw, of course, because it's a big giant thing.
Yeah, probably the Thunderjaw, just because it's a great balance between just looking cool as a design, but also the designs of the fights. Like when you do things to the Thunderjaw, like actually target individual components and whatnot, as opposed to a lot of other enemies that are of that like caliber, the high end enemies. Um, it actually feels like there's impact there. You can knock heavy weapons off of it to then
Yeah.
use against it. There, you can actually rope them down as opposed to some other later game enemies of that size, like mysteriously like can't be roped down. It's weird. I don't know. Thunderjaw is just all around, I think, the best designed in every sense, both visually and from a gameplay perspective. Yeah.
And
And
it was
you
like.
don't you
Go
don't
ahead.
really fight the tall necks, but it was like there. It's kind of like a Shadow of the Colossus moment. I really loved climbing those things and just the
Yeah.
sceneries that you get and the way they looked in a distance. And if you walk under them, like I can totally see when they do this VR game, like how cool it would be to be like underneath a tall neck and then climbing it. But you don't really get to fight them, so I didn't think it counted.
Yeah, well, no, I would count it because I was gonna say tall necks, and not really in the main game, but what really solidified them as like a brilliant like because they're almost treated like puzzles, right? You go to an area in the game proper. You go to an area and there's like an arena and there might be some enemies, but you gotta dodge around them or make your way around them and find the highest point where you can jump onto the tall neck when it walks by. And that's a really light puzzle. There's not much to that, but you get to Frozen Wilds and they become
Right.
awesome because there's one tall neck in Frozen Wilds and it's much more involved,
Yeah,
and you got to go and find these parts for it and repair it so that you can get the map information from it. And I thought that was fucking awesome.
yeah,
Like
it was cool.
finally a tall neck that's actually like you actually have to do something other than climb it. You got to fix it.
Yeah.
I thought that was great.
Who
I
destroyed the tall neck? Like why?
I don't
They're chill.
I don't actually know. I feel like they might have explained that somehow. It was like
I don't
frozen
remember.
to the ground, so I
Maybe it
don't
got
actually remember.
frozen. Oh.
Yeah. Are you gonna get that Lego set, Delilah?
I'm not gonna cave, no, but it is cool
Oh,
looking.
I have to get it for Katie.
Yeah.
We looked at that and we were like, oh, that's
She
really
a big
cool.
Horizon fan? She should
Yeah,
have joined us.
she did. She's still, or she's on her way home now, but timing wouldn't have worked out.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, I really like Tall Necks. I also really like Thunderjaw. So yeah, I would say if we had to pick a least favorite, I fucking hate fighting Rock Breakers. They are easily my least favorite machine to fight against.
The one that goes in the ground?
Yeah, the one that goes in the ground.
Yeah.
They are the worst.
I thought it was cool, but
It's a cool
they are
concept,
annoying.
but fighting them is just frustrating as hell.
Yeah.
I don't remember the
Fun
exact
fact.
names, but sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, all I was going to say was I don't remember the exact names, but basically the two like end game monsters they introduced in Frozen Wilds, which we'll get to obviously, I absolutely despise. Not the Yetis and the they're like
Scorchers?
enhanced Scorchers, yes.
Mm-hmm.
But
The
not
ones with
because
the
of the
grenade
designs.
launcher.
I just thought the mechanics of them were awful, but we'll get to that.
Yeah, I mean, let's you can go right into it right now. I also have bandits on here, but like they're just bandit camps. They're generic. They're not interesting.
People
Yeah.
to kill. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, let's talk about Frozen Wilds and why I think it's like the best content in the game, because like it totally is, man. It's like so good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
It's a
only
stark
introduces.
contrast. Like considering that the story is so much shorter, it's a stark contrast how much more invested I was in it.
Oh, the thing I wanted to bring up real quick. So I replayed the game. My recent replay was on ultra hard, and I was still going through and 100%ing it until I got to a corrupted zone that had 2 rock breakers.
Oh.
And I tried that for about 10 minutes and said, you know what? I don't need to 100% this again. Fuck this. I'm not doing it.
That's crazy.
And that's what made me stop trying to 100% the game again.
Wow.
Okay, yeah, Frozen Wilds, let's go. Yeah, there were only 3 new machines, which I thought was a little disappointing. It's the Scorchers, which are like they're like basically Ravagers, but they're faster, fiercer, and they have grenade launchers. And
You
yeah,
can't
fuck those
fucking
guys.
stop them, and
Yeah,
they have like massive AOE you can't dodge, and like I felt like the fights with them and the Yeti things, it was almost just like, all right,
by Yeti things, you mean
how many healing items do I have? Because it's just me taking damage
yeah.
until they die.
Are you talking about the bears, like the Frost Claw and the Fire
Frost
Claw?
claws, I think. Yeah.
They're like, yeah, okay. Wanted
That's
to make
why
sure.
when you fight the Thunderjaw in the cauldron, I was like, yes, because I was like, it was the most fun fight of the entire end mission, because I was like, all right, this is a dynamic fight where I can actually dodge things and I'm not always taking
Mhm.
damage without
Yeah.
any recourse, and actually hitting them at specific parts of the monster matters.
Yeah,
Yeah, the
but
movement was very erratic.
yeah, Scorchers were not fun. The hunting ground was really tough because they would throw some Scorchers at you, and like fighting 1 is like doable. Fighting 2 or more is just like, come on, you needed to
Yeah.
do some balancing here. This is excessive. Um, but yeah, Frozen Wilds, like the story, again, smaller area. The story was much more focused. They kind of subverted it's their own expectations on like or the expectations the player would have of like how tall necks work by throwing you for a loop and having to do something totally different. Um, they made like certain collectibles more interesting to find, like finding the animal figures. Like there were the Banuk figures in like the main game, and you kind of just get them and then you'd sell them. The animal figures, you get them and you go to this fucking like little like building and you give them to the guy, and then you can watch this thing that recreates like a hologram of that animal, and it like tells you a little bit of information about it. And like
Hmm.
that's just so much more interesting. It's a small thing, but it's
Yeah.
interesting. Um, the pigments, which like they were fine. They were a little trickier to find, I think, but like I don't know. It's just it was a great piece of content with a more interesting area and a much more focused plot. What did you guys think of like that story?
I thought it was fine. It was contained, but it's the same thing. Like, even though the dialogue was better, I still found myself pretty bored
Mm-hmm.
for the most part with the dialogue.
I
But it
actually
was really
no,
pretty. I love the
aside,
Frozen Wild.
Yeah.
aside from Silence, Aratak and Array were my favorite characters of the game. Like runner up to Silence, just because I understood their motives. They had interesting backstories, like that they actually explored, went into depth, and how it affected their relationship, and like
Yeah.
Yeah.
the whole plot with Cyan, the AI, and
Festus.
Hephaestus, yeah, the other AI that's overtaking Cyan. That was almost just like a that plot was just really there. It felt like it was there to progress the actual characters, which I like actually. Even though you're achieving something notable, and you're saving that part of, I guess we'll just call it Yellowstone, is what the entire area. It's supposed to be Yellowstone, or
Yeah.
what is now Yellowstone. You're saving that area from the machines that Hephaestus is making, so you're achieving a plot goal that affects the world. But at the same time, there's a real character story there going on with the relationship between Aratak and Araya, and that was more interesting to me than anything else the game had presented.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I for the most part agree. I think it's interesting. Like, Cyan was like a totally independent AI, not part of Project Zero Dawn. It was actually built to contain the volcano underneath Yellowstone
Mm-hmm.
and prevent it from erupting.
Speaking of which, when they say volcano and Aloy's just like, "Oh, a volcano," how the fuck does Aloy know what a volcano is?
It's a good point.
Which also brings me to, I mentioned there was one exception to the weird. There was weird dialogue here at the very beginning of this DLC when you're first getting to the Banuk village. You meet that merchant from the claim, um, and he basically looks and speaks like a stock character from a '60s blaxploitation film. He's like, "There's some kind of shindig going on." I'm like,
Oh
why would a
yeah.
character in this world know what a shindig
I
is?
think that's a different character,
I know who you're
but
talking about.
I get what you're saying.
I'm like, his speech and mannerisms should not be in this. It just totally like took me out. I'm like, what is going
I
on?
mean, maybe that's why they strayed away from having emotive dialogue, because then we would be like, well, I don't know, aren't they supposed to be like this like tribal
But then Aratak
civilization?
and Araya made it was perfectly fine. It made perfect
So
sense. They spoke like,
I guess
tribal people. Yeah,
to double back though, the reason they do have some knowledge, right? Like, they're not completely primitive. They're not a completely primitive people. Um, the reason they do have some knowledge is because, like, we saw, like, through holograms and stuff, going into like some of the facilities. I think it was All Mother's facility. Like, you see the holograms and recordings of the original of the initial, like there were kids that were cloned and bred, and
Yeah.
they were being taught by AI within there. So, like, the roots of their civilization did still have some intelligence despite all of humanity's knowledge being wiped away. So, like, that's
sure.
like some stuff could have been passed down. So yeah, who knows? Some great grandparent of somebody definitely talked about a shindig, and that past trickled down through the civilization all the way to present day, where
I don't
this
know what it was about that
Silence taught them.
I don't know what it was about those few lines of dialogue right there at the beginning. It just caught me really off guard. Maybe it was just the delivery of it because it just sounded so out of place too.
Lance Reddick and all his beautiful voice lines and everything is like, yes, I heard from Hades about something called a shindig back in the day.
Maybe he told Aloy about volcanoes
They had
too.
they had a real jamboree back then.
Yeah, exactly.
That's actually a good
There's something called a.
interpretation.
They had things called corporations. That was actually like a piece of dialogue. I just found it funny the way he said it. But
Yeah.
that made sense because he doesn't know. Like he's not familiar with corporations. He's like, they
Yeah,
had things called corporations. That makes sense.
there
Yeah.
was a concept called capitalism.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Sounds so foreign to me to live in that world. Jeez. All right. I mean, yeah. I think Araya's. I thought Araya's sacrifice was. I definitely didn't see that coming, and like it makes sense, but like it was also like, damn, it had to be Araya and not Aratak.
Yeah.
I kind of liked her a little better, but like still, that was a good emotional storyline, right? These two siblings that were at odds with each other, they finally come together, and one of them has to sacrifice themselves for the greater
Yeah.
good.
I agree with you, but like I didn't like one. I maybe liked Aratak a little better just because his motives were a bit more reasonable. Even if you needed to do what you actually end up doing, like he wanted to protect his sister, and she had just kind of been driven a little cuckoo by being in prison during a war. Um,
Mhm.
but I agree with you that it would have made more sense for him to push her out of the way and take the hit for her, given what his character motivations were.
Hey,
Yeah.
to bring up something that also bothered me, when other characters like introduce you to Aratak and tell you about him, and they tell you like, oh, he's a man of few words.
Yeah.
And then he
then
talks
he
to you
does.
just as much as everybody else.
Yeah.
Like, he's just not a man of few words at all. I don't know.
Maybe it was
he's
sarcasm. If I don't
maybe he's
know.
just attracted to Aloy or something. And it's like, oh, I'm gonna talk to you. All right, hello.
Hey,
But like, yeah, I that bothered the shit out of me. Like, there's a way they could have done that. Like, had him be like a man of few words and still talk to you, but like, be a man of few words. Don't
Right.
say much.
Right.
Yo,
Like-
he's gotta go hang out with Stinian and learn a few things.
Jesus Christ. All right, so yeah. The last thing I'll say about Frozen Wilds that did bother me is just like the end of the quest line where like science, you defeat Hephaestus, you save, and like Hephaestus was the protocol under Gaia that was like meant to make terraforming machines and mass produce them, but now going haywire is just building like super violent, awful machines, and created obviously the Frost Claws and the Fire Claws.
Mm-hmm.
Fire Claw being what you loved so much, Delaila.
And it should be noted here, I don't know how much you guys know about Greek mythology. So Hephaestus was the god of smithing in Greek mythology. Hades, obviously everybody knows who Hades is. Hades and Hephaestus hated each other in Greek mythology. So I'm wondering if in Forbidden West we'll see some conflict there, because Hephaestus was like the reasoning that Cyan gives us for why Hephaestus was doing what it was doing was not malicious. It was just being logical that humans were taking out the machines, so it needed to protect them.
Right. And Hephaestus isn't working for Hades either. Like, all these AI that split off from Gaia are totally independent. So, and I do really like how fitting the names are, right? Like, I like how Hades got a god of the underworld. Like, as an AI, it's meant to just wipe everyone out. Although I guess maybe the god of death would have been a better name for that AI, but Hades is much more recognizable. I couldn't even tell you the name of the Greek god of death off the top of my head. It's different from Hades though. But yeah, Hephaestus being like the god of smithing, like being the AI that creates machines, that creates weapons, makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, after the thing that bothered me, going back, the thing that bothered me is like after you foil the whole plan and you're wrapping up the quest, you got to talk to Cyan, you got to talk to Aratok. You could talk to again. It goes back to the dialogue thing, but Cyan has so much to say.
Yeah,
like it just like the quest doesn't really end with a bang. When you talk to Aratok, it's a bit more of an emotional moment, but like Cyan, just like holy shit, there was so much dialogue.
Yeah.
And then talking to Silence the wrap up after you found out what you have found out about him was the nice like cherry on top. But yeah, I thought Frozen Wilds was great.
Yeah, it was better.
Yeah, I thought it was much better than the base game. In multiple ways.
Yes, I think we were all agreed on that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I think we've exhausted. The other thing we could talk about, I guess, is the tribes. We didn't talk much about like the differences between the Nora, the Banuk, the Karja, and the Oseram. Do you guys have anything to say like about
Honestly,
them?
I couldn't even articulate the difference.
They did. I mean, I guess they kind of did a good job with design-wise, giving them distinct looks.
Yeah.
But in terms of the politics, there was a Sun King in Meridian who was, I guess, the Karja, and he was mad, and his son overthrew him, and it's about all I know.
Yeah, the Meridian as a city is like a Karja city, and the Avad. Oh, I didn't even bring up Avad. Avad's pretty cool. I actually do like him as a character. I do feel he's a little underutilized. He's the current Sun King of Meridian. His father was like a tyrant, and there was like a Karja civil war, which split off between the Karja and the Shadow Karja, and like the old Sun King was like, he's a real dick, and I think Avad actually killed him and took over, and the Meridian was very closed off, just Karja only city, and now like with Avad being in charge. Like he's trying to open the city up to other tribes, other people. That's why there's lots of Asurum there. It's why Erend is there. Erend's sister, whose name I forget, was like the head of the guard. And there's a whole quest line centered around finding out what happened to her, which, I forgot her name, so it tells you how much that mattered, I guess. The most memorable part of that is when you meet back up with Erend, he's like just wasted because he's grieving and pissed and wondering what happened to his sister.
The only thing I remember is, I guess Erend says something along the lines of, "I'm my sister." I don't even remember. It was something about his sister always talking down to him, but she was just trying to prepare me. I don't know.
But yeah, like I think all that stuff is really cool. And the Nora obviously being like, oh, this is our sacred land and you can't leave, and if you do, well, you're exiled forever, and unless you're a seeker or whatever. The Banuk obviously explored in frozen wilds. I do think the distinctions between the tribes are cool. I think it gets a little weird or iffy with the Shadow Karja and the Eclipse, because I think the Eclipse are just like a sector of the Shadow Karja, and they're the people working for Hades. I don't know. But yeah, I thought that I felt like 5 years ago I guess I just didn't pay close attention, because this time I found it a lot easier to differentiate between them, and I actually enjoyed it quite a bit.
I had the opposite. 5 years ago, I paid more attention, and this time I was like, I don't know, just didn't stick.
Cool clothes, bro, but not interested yet.
Okay, that's fine. Any other story stuff you guys want to talk about before we move on to more general game stuff?
No, I think it's just I think we would all be in agreement to say that the story is probably one of the weaker, if not the weakest, element of this game.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on where you look, I would say.
It's not even the story, it's more the dialogue, which I guess they go hand in hand, but I just feel like the dialogue took away from what could have been a really good story.
Yeah. It's not even like the dialogue itself. I mean, it is a lot of the dialogue itself, but like just the way it's all presented, the way the conversations are presented, presentation is just like a big problem with this game, and that even extends, in my opinion, to the UI. I think the UI is really ugly. I think the HUD is hideous.
I hit it.
Oh, that would have been a nice thing to do.
Yeah, it's easy, and then you just like swipe the touchpad if you want it to pop up for whatever reason.
Fuck.
Yeah.
I wish I knew about that.
It's really
man.
actually a really cool feature.
Yeah, I would have done that because, like I said, I think it's hideous, and I hate navigating menus when I have to just do something quick, right? If I have to switch like armor, or if I have to switch a weapon, I hate having to pause the game.
You just
press shoulder buttons to get to an equipment menu and then switch stuff out. This game needed loadouts desperately.
Not just loadouts, but like the inventory
get rid of
management.
A lot of the shit you're doing.
Yeah,
that isn't necessary. Yeah.
Why am I crafting fast travel kits? Why?
Why are you crafting? Yeah, why are you crafting all this shit mid battle? Yeah, it's.
I'm constantly in my menu just getting rid of shit.
We're getting really close to it, so I'm just gonna ask, because this is the biggest question that I think I want to ask you guys: is Horizon Zero Dawn an RPG?
It's trying to be, but it doesn't understand the actual elements that make an RPG, and it's conflicting with an action game. So, going back without going into too much detail, our Spoilercast on Final Fantasy VII Remake, one of the problems I had was the combat, and how I felt like the action combat was at odds with the RPG elements they were trying to put in there. And in some ways, to not as nearly as much as severe a degree, I felt the same way here, where there's a lot of RPG elements they're trying to put in, but it's at odds with the gameplay loop goals of the action, and trying to solve what each of these machines are essentially a puzzle. They have all these different components, weaknesses that you can look out, but because it needs to be an RPG at the same time and scale with these massive enemy health pools, at some point it's diminishing returns, where you could solve the puzzle of the enemy, take out all of its components, hit its weaknesses, but because the enemy needs to be powerful because it's an RPG and you're at that point later in the game, you're not actually doing all that much more damage. Plus all the crafting thrown in, you're constantly crafting ammunition
Yeah.
mid-battle, which takes you out of the immersion of the action. There's just too much conflicting with each other. There needed to be stuff cut out.
I
See,
actually liked that you can craft in the middle of battle because it was pretty intuitive and it was quick. Like it's not like
Mhm.
it's not like you had to go into a menu to craft something, which would have annoyed me even more because I was already in
Yeah.
my menu way too much. But I do agree that I feel like almost the RPG elements in this game took away from it being a
Well,
better game.
what I'm saying is balance it so you don't need to be crafting as much. So, like, take enemy health pools for example. If an or damage that you're doing to an enemy, if an enemy has less health, um, or if you're doing more damage, you don't need to fucking sling hundreds of arrows at it. So you're not
Right.
constantly crafting as much. So it's not as noticeable that you're
Right. Right.
crafting in battle, as
Yeah.
opposed to some fights. Particularly, that's one of the reasons I dislike those Yeti fights. It's because I just felt like I was tediously crafting
Bears, bears, they're
bears,
bears,
whatever,
Jason. They're supposed to be bears.
whatever. I just felt like I was crafting shit all the time. I was crafting healing stuff all the time, looking for herbs all the time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Same.
Too much looting. It was annoying.
Yeah, yeah. This game has a major loot problem.
And also you need to upgrade an ability to loot while on a mount. Why? Just let me do that from the beginning. Like
Oh,
there's so many things in this game that I'm like, it should have just been a mechanic, not a skill.
what's even worse is like when you go to loot something from your mount, you stop. You
Yeah.
can't just grab it on the go. It's like
Yeah.
it's kind of that like problem where like with games, like you have the difference between like Red Dead Redemption 2 and Ghost of Tsushima, right?
Yeah.
Where Red Dead Redemption 2 is going for hyper realism, everything you do is like a realistic animation, you would need to stop and do this if you really wanted to do it. Ghost of Tsushima is like you're riding on your horse at full speed. Don't worry, you can still grab that bamboo as you go right by it. Just press a button and you're still going full speed.
Right.
Not an issue. This is a video game, remember? And like this game kind of had that like halfway point where it's like it's a video game and it knows that, but it doesn't really know that at times. It only knows that for very specific things.
Yeah.
And so, like, yeah, riding around on a mount and, like, I go to pick up some flowers to put in my medicine pouch and stop. All
Right.
momentum to stop. And I'm like, there are fucking machines right there. They're going to see me and attack me. Keep running,
Yeah.
Like, why did you have to stop for that? To go back to what you were saying, Jason, the difference between this and Final Fantasy VII Remake's combat, and I remember I liked that combat a lot more than you did, is I feel like if you strip the RPG elements out of Final Fantasy VII Remake, it doesn't work very well. It's just very boring, very generic. You strip the RPG elements out of this game,
It's better.
it's better. It's fine. It's
Yeah.
like the bones are still there. It still works really well. It didn't need to be there. It's like it's also part of we keep bringing up other games, and if you want to listen to our thoughts on like all these other games, we have episodes on them. I think we have an episode on every single game that we brought up except for Red Dead Redemption 2. But anyway, God of War 2018 did not need to have a gear system. It didn't need to have it. There was no reason to have like an upgradable gear system or anything in that game. Strip it out, and I think it would have made the game a lot better. It's the same thing with this one. This is an action adventure game desperately trying to be an RPG, and I don't think it's an RPG because I think if you remove all those RPG elements that it has, it's not only like the same game but better.
Agreed. Well, and also Kratos doesn't need armor, but anyway.
From a game designer's perspective, it's the Skinner box mentality that has kind of overtaken the industry writ large, and this is especially more prevalent in open world games. It's why you have these RPG elements now in Assassin's Creed. It's to keep you doing all the side content that just gets diarrheaed out onto the map because you feel like it gives you a sense of progress. But it's not about our action elements and RPG elements can't be put together. It's knowing which elements to put together. Yeah.
Exactly, and that's why I say I think Final Fantasy VII Remake's combat works really well in the context of that game and what they're trying to do with it. I think action RPGs kind of get a little muddled. Frankly, I think who's doing it best is From Software.
Mm.
100% they're doing action RPGs the best, I would say, in the
Yes.
industry right now. But like largely, yeah, like you take these elements out and you still have the same game. It's just you don't have all this other banal, tedious bullshit to deal with.
Yeah.
Like finally getting like some blue stealth armor that you can then put a mod on to make your stealth 12% better, and then getting a new bow that does a little more damage than your old bow, and then putting mods on that. You don't need any of that shit.
Yeah.
Like, just balance the game around base gear. Still have an upgrade system. I'm not knocking any sort of progression. You have an upgrade system where you have to collect resources to upgrade those weapons. Fine, but I don't need to have like bow rarities. I don't need to have rarity on my gear and then trade up to get like a rarer bow that like does a little more damage or
Right.
whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I
And
think
like
that's totally unnecessary.
like some outfits are good for stealth, some are good for like defense or whatever, and I just wound up sticking with one outfit because I was just annoyed.
Yeah.
I didn't want to be bothered, and it wasn't
And
like I was playing on like a hard difficulty where I had to be mindful of that. I mean, you played on hard. Did you have to be mindful of that on a hard difficulty?
dude, on ultra hard, I just kept the shield weaver on the whole time
Right,
because
exactly.
I didn't want to fuck around with. I hate going into menus. I really hate
Yeah,
going into menus. I don't want to have to do it. I want like frankly, it's the same problem I had with Final Fantasy 15. Both of these games desperately needed like a quick loadout thing where you don't have to go into your menu. You could just like open, or like from the game, like just being in the world, you could just like swipe on your touchpad or something and
yeah.
switch to a different loadout.
Same with
It
Ghost
needed
of Tsushima.
something.
Actually, I think that was our complaint in
Yeah.
that game too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just like have a quicker way to switch between let me set a loadout that's like stealth based. Have it set a loadout that's like heavy weapons based or
Or
something.
let me just mod my first outfit that I got, the cool iconic one, and let me put a freaking Watcher heart into the outfit, and then you give me more stealth.
That would actually be really cool because like the outfits and stuff are so built around machine parts. Well, you're harvesting machine parts. Why can't I use them to modify my outfits?
Yeah.
That would have been a better way of having like gear progression. You have one base outfit and then you slot in like a Watcher heart or a Thunderjaw heart eventually, and it gives you a certain buff or something.
Yeah.
Make the RPG
And then it
elements even
reduces
tighter
the,
than they already
and
are.
then and then it's all, everything has consequences on other systems. So you do something like what you just said, and then you have less resources to manage. You don't have to fucking keep crafting more item
Right.
space all the time. You don't have to. It's all
Yeah.
it cascades. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's just a
Yeah.
problem with systems design, and a lot of games right now have this issue.
Yeah. So yeah, that's kind of how I want to conclude that is like this game desperately wants to be an RPG, but it's not doing the right things to actually be one. And like it also goes back to those dialogue choices, right? Like it's really trying to be something like Mass Effect, but those dialogue choices have absolutely no bearing on the story. You could
Right.
choose the dick option or the loving option, and it changes nothing.
Right.
It's all the same. The outcome is always the same. Even the conversation you're in is always the same. It does not matter.
Yeah.
They were a totally we talked about how that takes away from Aloy's character, and I stand by that. Like the game would have been better off without that crap. It really would have been.
Yeah. And I feel like we are critiquing the game a lot. Like, I just want to make it clear Horizon Zero Dawn was my game of the year of 2017. But there's a lot of things that didn't age well, but more importantly, things that even current games do that just shouldn't be done anymore. They're just wasting my time. And I love the game still, and I'm very excited for the sequel, but I just can't help but see its age, but also like criticize it for doing things that maybe I
Look,
didn't mind in
Yeah,
2017.
that's why, to roll off that's why I prefaced it with, I was very hyped about the game when it first came out, and I was very into it, um, but when I started playing it again for this review or spoilercast, whatever you want to call it, I was wondering why it was that I didn't really remember much from it.
Yeah.
And now I kind of see why, and the errors are much more glaring to me,
yeah.
with kind of that retrospective eye.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like I'll echo what Delilah said. Say I also like the game, but you know what? Like it's okay to criticize something if you like it. You know, I I can name off a bunch of flaws of Final Fantasy VII, like one of my favorite games of all time. Like that game's not perfect, but like
Right.
yeah, this game it's not one of my favorites. It wasn't even my game of the year 2017, but
Honestly now, like I probably would choose Resident Evil 7
yeah, I think
going
Yeah.
I
back.
think well, no, in retrospect, Nier Automata is my game of the year
Right,
2017.
right, of
But
course.
but
Of
I
course.
didn't play that in 2017. At the time, I would have said Resident Evil 7 for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, the point being, like, yeah, like we are being harsh on this game, but like it also was a bit of a proof of concept for Guerrilla because this was their first time not doing a first person shooter,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right? Like obviously they're very good at world building. The world building here is phenomenal, but like they really tried to make an open world RPG, and I feel like they made an open world action game with RPG elements, and they just don't work, and they don't need to be there. Like not every game needs to have that stuff.
Yeah.
I think I said something similar with regards to like crafting with A Plague Tale Innocence. Like that game did not need to have crafting.
Yeah.
This game obviously does, but like
It makes sense.
it makes sense, and also like it doesn't need to have this whole slew of other things that it just has because it needs to be more video gamey, I guess. But yeah, that I think that's we got my point. I think we got
Yeah.
all of our
Less is
points
more.
across about yeah,
Yeah.
we got our points
Less is
across about
more.
the genre.
Which brings
I
us
reject.
to I think it's fitting that our final, or I think it's our final topic here. Or no,
We
it's
still
not,
got
but
more to talk about.
we still got more to talk about. But we're heading now into what I think is probably one of this game's strengths, which is the combat.
Yeah.
Yeah, the combat's pretty good. I think obviously the lack of like loadouts and being able to switch things out with ease is kind of annoying,
Of
but like
course.
the enemy designs and how they function and how they react to you are pretty good. And I think the weapons provided are cool. I think it's stupid to have like three different types of bows all with their own ammunition types. Like
Right.
Yeah.
why is this bow the only one where I can shoot like
Explosive shit or
the tear blaster arrows, like I think
yeah.
that's a needless.
Yeah.
But it all goes back to like their gear system and how they have that functioning as more of an RPG thing, and I think that was
It's all
needless.
interconnected, yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, go on, talk about the combat.
Um so my opinion on the combat is that when you're in the open world, not in a mission, and you just encounter a random group of machines, or maybe a Thunderjaw is roaming and you encounter it and you decide to take it on, it's some of the most satisfying action. I mean, aside from the things we've already mentioned, like maybe having to craft ammo in the middle of it, that kind of takes you out a little bit. Um, when the combat is taking place in the open world and you have all those options available to you that it gives you, and a lot of those enemies are so, like the Thunderjaw, are so well designed with so many ways to approach the battle. You could take out its guns, you could go for the armor on the legs, or those missile launchers that are on its hindquarters. You could take out its tail so it can't swipe at you. You could tie it down, all that stuff. Some of the most satisfying combat, I'll say, of its time. Um, when you're forced into an enclosed, pre-designed, well, it's all pre-designed, but when you're forced into an enclosed arena, that combat just sucks ass.
There
Uh,
aren't many circumstances. Well, I mean, I guess the cauldrons actually, but they don't
and
throw a ton at you.
a lot of that is more like the final bosses of the main campaign, and then the scenarios of Frozen Wild.
Okay.
Which a lot of that also has to do with the design of those enemies in particular. When you're just getting hit with massive damage that's near impossible to dodge over and over again. And it really just comes down to scrounging for as many healing items as you can and lobbing hundreds of arrows at enemies you can't pin down and can hit you with range attacks on a moment's notice. You can't, like, the one of them punched the ground and like lava fucking comes up from underneath you, and it's like, well, fuck me, I guess. I don't know. Like,
Yeah, and it feels like there's almost no way to avoid it effectively, like unless you like really know the pattern of the robot thing then you can't really
Yeah.
avoid that. Or like you'll avoid it, and like let's say you're avoiding the lava, then you'll roll into like a whack from either another robot or the same robot moving
And
erratically.
given how big they are, those machines can jump and move so fast at you that it's so hard. It's not like, again, the Thunderjaw, which it feels like the movement speed of the Thunderjaw actually correlates to like its size and weight.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's why the only reason I mentioned that those arena battles I did not like at all. But in terms of the open world combat, I absolutely loved it. Except the melee. Melee sucks. Animation lock
Right.
sucks.
Yeah, I actually used melee quite a bit in this replay. I don't really know why, because yeah, it is very underbaked. And obviously Frozen Wild, you don't have like any way to mod your melee weapon until Frozen Wilds.
Right.
We already know that melee is getting like a huge overhaul with Forbidden West, which is nice. I hope it's enough, but I think I like the whole concept of with machines they have weak points, right? And you can use your focus to scan and exploit those. um I think I had a lot of, I don't know about you guys, I had a lot of trouble like aiming and actually connecting my shots where I wanted to connect them.
Yeah, the
Mm.
hit detection could sometimes be a bit wonky. Like I had
Yeah.
arrows literally go straight through the part and not hit it.
Mm.
Like I could see the path of the arrow clip the geography
Oh,
of
interesting.
the, and there was also other weird things like some monsters that shoot range attacks, or animals or dinosaurs, whatever, that shoot range attacks. Like I could see that there was a bit of built-in aim assist to it, where I would dodge and move, and I could see it almost arc. Same with
Mm,
sometimes when like watchers jumped at me, they like arced. It was weird. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
but
The
those are kind of
part
like minor complaints. Yeah,
the part about the combat that I really like, besides the weak points and different weak points on different robots, is the pinging system. Which, like at the time,
Mm,
the only other game to do it was Metal Gear Solid. At least that I played,
yeah.
and it worked so intuitively. And
on
it was especially good in the open world sequences, like you said.
Uncharted 4 also did it a year prior.
It did.
Yeah.
Okay, but I don't know why I don't remember it. I guess I don't know.
It's been a while.
I guess because I use more stealth in Horizon than I did in Uncharted, it
Yeah,
stood out
yeah.
to me a little bit more.
Uncharted adding like Uncharted 4 adding like deep stealth mechanics was like, well, I mean, I could do that, but I don't know. I'd rather
It's
just go
Uncharted.
in guns. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's Uncharted. I'd rather just
There's
go
this
in
mini
guns
gun over
blazing.
here. I'm just gonna use that.
Gotta be Nathan Drake jumping on a rope and going whoa 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 whoa. Like that's the stealthing around. That's not the Nathan Drake way.
Yeah. And also the dodging is really good. It's just the like Jason said, the enemies are so big that sometimes even if you dodge at the right time, it's not like Dark Souls where if you dodge at the right time, like you're avoiding an attack. Like no, like sometimes you're still gonna
and
get hit.
and you're getting hit by like mobs of sometimes upwards of a dozen machines at a time.
Yeah, there's so
Yeah,
many that come at you. It's kind of annoying sometimes. Certain areas, especially in like the desert area, it was really annoying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd say the combat shines mostly in its enemy variety, not so much the weapon variety. Although that is pretty solid. At least the weapons you can have on you. You could obviously get like some heavy weapons, which some are cool, some kind of suck. But the enemy variety is great. It's like a lot of machines are kind of samey, but the bigger ones, like the behemoths and even the sawtooths and the ravagers, um how they all have different behaviors and they all have different ways of overcoming them, different weak points, and then obviously the really big ones, the Thunderjaw, the Stormbirds, and
yeah.
the Rock
They're each
Breakers.
like a puzzle. Yeah, that,
Yeah.
that's why I think they could have taken a lot of the RPG elements out of the
Hmm.
combat, because the action and the puzzles of figuring out the enemies is a game in and of itself that's so much fun. And you have so many ways to approach it. Yeah.
Right.
Did you guys find yourselves using the sling and the tripwire and
You
all the
know,
other?
on my
No.
first playthrough, I didn't find myself switching things up a lot. This time I did.
Yeah.
And in spite of the fact that I had to go into menus to change up my weapons and shit, like I tried using a lot more of my arsenal, and I really enjoyed that. You know what we didn't bring up, and I actually really liked, were the new weapons they added in
Oh my
Frozen
god.
Wild.
Yeah. They're
A
OP.
lot of those. Yeah, yeah, they are. A lot of those are really cool.
Well, that's the thing, though. As soon as I got those, I didn't feel the need to use anything else aside from the
Just
bow.
The
shoot
problem with
like a rocket launcher that shoots thunderbolts. Yeah.
the problem
Yeah.
with those is they eat when you go to build or craft ammo. They eat your resources real fast.
Good. I had too many anyway.
Yeah, I mean that. There's also that.
Yeah.
But like when I was playing through the Frozen Wilds and I had like the flame spitter or whatever it's called, like I was using that quite a bit, and then next thing I know, I didn't have any more blaze,
Yeah.
and that like that happened very quickly, and I was like, holy shit. I did not realize that crafting ammo for these things uses a lot of
Yeah, it was
materials.
a godsend for me because, like, I had Blaze in my inventory. I was dropping Blaze, I was selling Blaze, and then I had Blaze in these boxes that I could open. I was just like, yo,
Yeah.
Got
eat it.
blaze
Eat
for
all the.
days. Yeah.
Yeah, I was blazing.
But yeah, that's what I'll say about the combat. I feel like I didn't connect with it so much as most people. It sounds like I didn't connect with it as much as you guys did either. But yeah, that's how I feel is that the enemies
I
were
was
definitely the highlight.
more into it the first time I played it. Now I kind of I didn't
Yeah.
find myself seeking out random enemies as much as I did the first time.
Okay.
No, Mark, I think I'm on the same page as you. I think I'm just wording it different because, again, like I
Okay.
said, when the enemies are poorly designed, it stood out to me a lot more, which is why I hated the Scorchers and the Frost Claws and whatnot so much,
Hmm.
because it just felt like the design of the enemies and the encounters was just ridiculous compared to some of the larger beasts in the main part of the game.
Yeah.
It didn't feel as much of a puzzle because with the Frost Claws, you're not really there are armor pieces to break off, but it's like you can only really shoot at the shoulder and those
Yeah.
little
The
spikes sticking
shoulders
out of
and the
its ass
belly.
and the belly. Yeah,
Oh, there's that too. Yeah.
but even then, like you can't really pin them down for long with your rope caster. Like
Hmm.
you really just have to run around and launch dozens upon dozens, if not hundreds, of arrows at like their
Yeah, they
weak
move
points.
too fast to hit their weak
Yeah.
point and they don't have that many.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um. Let's talk about we've already talked quite a bit about the open world, but let's talk about like the world at large and exploration of it. Um and this is
Mhm.
where I want to bring up the one time that I think it's okay to bring it up because it was heavily compared to Breath of the Wild when both those games came out, because Breath of the Wild had the policy of you can climb anything as long as you have stamina, you can climb anything, and Horizon Zero Dawn, it feels like you can't fucking climb anything ever. Like
Yeah.
it's there were so many times my first time I played the game 5 years ago where I would run around a mountain. I knew there was a collectible up the mountain, and I would run around the mountain trying to find the handhold to climb it, and I would spend like 10, 15, sometimes 20 minutes just running around like an idiot trying to find the fucking highlighted gray ledges that I could climb up. And
Yeah.
like I totally get why people would look at this game and then at the same time look at Breath of the Wild, a game that came out a week later, where you can just fucking climb anything and think, man, I wish I could do that in Horizon. I
Yeah,
really wish.
I don't think games necessarily need to be like Breath of the Wild where you can climb everything, but
Oh, I
because
don't
this
either.
game had so many collectibles that were high up and in like parkour sequences and they weren't made as clear as they were in, let's say, an Assassin's Creed game, then I feel like maybe you need to allow that traversal to be more seamless and less specific.
Hmm. It's just like they for a lot of those moments, it's just like there's only one way to do there's only one way to climb this, right? But it's like, all right, where is it? Like they needed to do more telegraphing, right? They needed to do more signposting of this is the place to climb. And I don't think that like everything needs to be just like you don't need to have signs with arrows pointing to the thing, but like have more clever ways to show that this thing is climbable and you can get up here and find something,
Yeah.
because you just wind up wasting a ton of time just trying to find out how you can climb up the goddamn mountain like I
Right.
did.
It's
Yeah.
also
You know, and if you're
frustrating
gonna
when there's stuff that looks like you should at least be able to jump over it, like a chest high rock going up, and it's like this is a chick that's like balancing on poles and leaping from it across chasms, but she can't get over a chest high rock. Like,
Right.
Conversely, a lot of my methods of climbing up mountains and hills and stuff was rock hopping.
Yeah.
Just
yeah,
jumping from rock to rock to rock to rock. And it's not the way you're supposed to do it, but I could
It
do it,
works
so I did.
sometimes,
Because,
yeah.
you
yeah,
see the top of
exactly.
that mountain, you can go there.
So, like, yeah. Also, like, the reason I don't play a lot of open world games, and this game is so guilty of this. You open that map, and it is just loaded
It's
with
diarrhea.
icons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is just they are just everywhere. There's like a campfire. There's a campfire 20 meters from another campfire at times, and they're both on your map. Don't you worry. And it's just like exhausting opening that map and seeing just all of those
But to
icons.
get there, you got to craft a fast travel point unless you buy the one specific
Yeah,
unlimited fast travel thing that you can get at some random merchant that
which
the game doesn't tell you to go to.
I luckily did have right away, and I just had that and didn't have to worry about it, which was great.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's the fast travel's treated really weird. I think they really wanted to prevent you from doing it until they stopped preventing
Well,
you from
because it's
doing it.
critical to a lot of the progression systems, is you doing a lot of the side content as you're moving across. That
Yeah,
was what they intended.
but like I just want to get there faster.
No,
You
I
Yeah.
agree,
know?
and I find it interesting. I was still able to clear the main content without doing virtually any side
Yeah.
content in this playthrough, which really like makes me wonder. Okay, why was this so important to you?
Right.
Yeah.
It's just padding.
Other than making it being able to say on the box of the game, this is a 50+ hour game. Yeah,
Right. I've definitely become more snobby when it comes to open world games and just like that check mark, go here, do this
everybody
thing. Where it's
has.
like,
That's like
it's,
Because we get so many of them, and they're all largely the same, right? Like they all just have just like an overload of shit to do, and it's just like most of it's just designed to just waste your time.
yeah.
And I like it's the reason I have not played The Witcher 3 yet. It's the reason I have not played
But
like
at
any
least The Witcher
Witcher.
game.
3, the side content
I
is more interesting
I know,
than
I
the main
know.
Yeah,
story.
Listen, I understand, but I took one look at that map
No,
and saw
I
all
get
the
it. That's the
icons on it,
fucking biggest
and
map. Yeah.
it stressed me the fuck out. That's the problem. It stressed me the fuck out.
Yeah, if
Mark,
less
I agree. I agree. Like with The Witcher, I still haven't finished The Witcher 3. I never finished it, but like I will defend the side content in that game.
No, I look. I'm
Yeah,
not knocking that stuff. I'm
yeah,
not knocking it at all. I have no
if there
doubt.
weren't so many open world games that existed with shit, then maybe you would have played The Witcher by now.
yeah.
Right,
Exactly,
right,
exactly.
exactly. If there weren't so many, and that was a more solitary experience, I would be more willing to jump into it. But like, I mean, I'll never play another Ubisoft game
I'm
except for ones
telling
that aren't
you.
open world because
Especially now that they got RPG elements. Yeah,
yeah, like fucking Assassin's Creed Odyssey and Valhalla taking like 100 hours to beat. Yeah, I know, Delilah. I know you're gonna fucking groan about that one, but like
well,
you do
Mark,
it. You
hey,
do it to yourself.
bust out the wallet. You can buy loot boxes.
All right, we're getting off track at this point.
Well, no, I
Um,
mean,
It's
yes,
relevant.
but
Yeah, it's relevant. Yeah.
what I will
also,
say. Go ahead,
I
Delilah.
was just saying we're off track because we're really upset about this, and
Yeah,
we
we're
don't want all
upset.
this extra bullshit in our games. That's all.
Yeah. And yet, the next Assassin's Creed, the live service one's gonna get announced, and
Oh,
Delilah's gonna
fucking
fucking pick it
shit.
up and go stream it
No, I
and
can't. I'm
100% it.
done. I'm done. I
Delilah, come
swear.
on! It's just like we got away from Destiny. You can do Assassin's Creed.
No,
It's
I
not as
I feel
know.
hard.
like I
I
feel
know.
like
You're right. You're
I feel
right.
like this episode is getting dangerously close to being an intervention for Delilah and open
Yeah.
world Ubisoft games. Delilah,
Assassin's Creed
you
Valhalla was terrible.
you don't have to play the next Far Cry. You don't have to do it. It's okay.
You're right.
It's
At
just like
least,
remember Destiny. Remember I struggled, but I let it go.
yeah, you're
All
right.
right. Anyway, reeling it back, what I will say about this game's setting and its world, did you guys know where this game takes place?
Yeah, Yellowstone. It says it.
Not entirely. It's this game takes place in like the intersection between Colorado, Montana, Arizona, and Utah.
Oh,
It
interesting. I could see
part,
that.
parts of the map are in all four of those states.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So at points you move out of
Yeah,
Yellowstone into. Okay, gotcha.
yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense actually with the geography of the map.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the Banuk land, or the Banuk land is Montana, right? And
Right.
then
Right.
The Nora land I think is supposed to be Colorado, which is like explains like the biome, right?
Yeah.
Like it's
Yeah.
kind of snowy in both those areas, and then you move further west and it's very deserty and arid, and that's
Arizona.
Arizona, which is really fucking dry and hot, and part of Utah. So,
Yeah.
and I think, obviously they can't make that shit to scale. Like even
Yeah.
Spider-Man didn't make New York City to scale.
Right.
So like you can navigate that. I was really this like credit to its open world. It looks really big, but you can navigate it pretty quickly even without fast travel,
Yeah.
which I was pretty happy and impressed with just because, the sheer fact of it being an open world game with a lot of fucking icons. I was like, God damn it, this is going to take fucking forever. No, it actually really wasn't that bad to navigate.
Yeah. And you have mounts too, but I
Mhm.
hated once again that you needed a skill to call it to you instead of just finding a random mount and taking it
Yeah.
over.
Yeah, you had to like I abused the shit out of that one skill where you could just like press the mount button and one would just show up.
Yeah, you just fight for
Because
you.
when I originally played the game, before you have that skill. Oh yeah, I did that in fights too where I would just call a mount to like I would be like, "Hey, come here, I want to ride you." It would show up and it'd be like, "I don't actually want to ride you. I want you to
Yeah.
fight this thing for me." Um I abused that so bad. But like prior to getting that skill, like you had to do so much more work for a mount. You had to sneak up on a mountable machine, and there were only like four of those, and you had to sneak up on it and override it, and then you could
Yeah.
ride it, and like I don't want to fucking do that.
It took longer
Yeah.
to find the mount than actually going to the location and walking
Right.
there.
So
Exactly. I barely
most of the
did it in the game. Yeah.
right. So most of the time when I first played the game, I just went on foot everywhere.
Yeah.
Like
Same.
because
Same.
it just saved me more time to do that.
Just another
Um
testament to the RPG mechanics didn't need to be there. There didn't need to
yeah,
be a skill.
really just yeah, really didn't need to be there. Um we've talked about progression. I mean, we could talk about the skill trees, but like, I don't know. Is it worth it?
They all
Just
suck.
No. They're basically like we've said. Delilah said it multiple times. You've said it multiple times. A lot of stuff that should have just been intrinsic mechanics were locked behind skill progression.
yeah. And it's like I don't have a problem with having like a skill tree system where you unlock skills. Like a lot of
Make
games
me
do
do more
that.
damage.
Non-RPGs do that. Huh?
Make me
Yeah.
do more damage.
Yeah, or like if you're gonna do an RPG, yeah, don't lock mechanics behind there. Like they could have done, from what I understand, they're doing this for Forbidden West, but like melee combat gets enhanced through a skill tree. Do something like that
Yeah.
that like enhances certain things, but like don't like lock specific above head takedowns were like locked behind a skill
Right.
tree thing. Like
Stealth is
why?
almost unusable until like towards the end of the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
The slowdown
yeah.
time was probably the only thing that felt like a useful skill that made sense for
Yeah,
being a skill.
and
Yeah.
again, that should have been an intrinsic
It could have been,
mechanic.
yeah. Yeah.
So, I guess let's talk about like some of the side content and collectibles and stuff that we haven't touched on, and then we can wrap it up because
Hmm.
I'm not sure how much more there is to talk about with this game. Um, Side content, we already talked about side quests. We had cauldrons, corrupted zones, bandit camps, and hunting grounds. How'd you guys feel about like that extra supplemental stuff?
I didn't really care for any of it my second time around. The
Okay.
first time around,
Yeah.
I was fine with it.
Yeah. The
I
first time around, it's like you're so wrapped. I was so wrapped up in it, but this time I didn't even bother doing it. Like I did
yeah.
almost all of it the first time, but
I did most of it. The things that I skipped out on were the corrupted zones because I mentioned the rock breakers, but like also they're just like pointless. Who cares? Bandit camps I did because they opened up waypoints, but also they felt like just a means to an end. Like, oh, we got to have more human enemies, so let's have bandit camps throughout the world. Like,
Right.
why? Fucking why? The cauldrons were really cool.
They were the coolest side quests, yeah. But even some of the puzzles within the main missions and within the cauldrons were just stupid and a waste of time.
Yeah, I felt like some of them could have been better, but they felt like mini dungeons.
Yeah.
They were definitely unique.
And I kind of feel like there should have been less of other stuff and more of those, because they were really cool.
Yeah.
Right.
And they let you override more machines, which I think is really useful.
Yeah.
And especially going into tough fights, it's nice to be able to override one of those machines to help you out.
Yeah.
And then the hunting grounds.
Just like challenge modes.
Yeah, and like some of them were cool. Yeah, that was another thing on ultra hard that made me not want to 100% it again, was the one where it heavily involved thunder jaws.
Yeah.
And I found out that they removed the whole thing where Terror Blast arrows remove Thunderjaw's guns with one shot. So it would take like 5 shots to remove one of their cannons, and by then I'd be out of time on one of the challenges.
Oh yeah.
It's just like, how the fuck are you supposed to do this shit on ultra hard? But like, yeah, those were fun. I liked those quite a bit. And then collectibles. This is my kind of my problem with a lot of the collectibles in the main game, is just like they're not useful. Like getting the metal flowers and the Banuk figures and the mugs, you just sell them to a guy, or like to a guy, and
Really?
You get a chest.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's all they're for.
Some of the
And like,
chests just give you like a mod. It's like, what?
it sucks.
Damn.
Like the one cool thing about the mugs, where like there was one that had a Hellgast soldier on it from Killzone, and I was like, I understand that reference.
Yeah,
But like,
I felt like a lot of the places where you find some of these collectibles had like lore bits, like that kind of stuff hanging about, like data points and whatnot. But it's like it was
and
already bad enough trying to having to stand in one place to listen to an audio recording and
mhm.
not accidentally hit triangle to do something else and cancel the
Yeah,
dialogue. Yeah, you know, like
terrible idea to do that.
right.
Make your main interact button the button that stops an audio recording when you want to go do other shit. Like,
Yeah.
why would you do that? And then, like, yeah, those data points that we talked about this issue with Death Stranding, and it's ironic because they're both of these games use the same engine, but like this is totally an independent problem for both those games. Whenever you get like a data point that's written, there's just so much text. It's really tiny, and I don't want to read any of it.
Yeah. They're
Like,
not very interesting either.
the only ones that I ever wanted to listen to were the audio ones, and those were always the most interesting anyway. But like, holy shit, there was so much text in those data points, and there's so many data points. Like,
Yeah.
fuck, just make them all audio and fuck off. I feel like as this episode goes on, I'm getting grouchier and more angry at this game.
You sound like me.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
I feel bad though, because like people wrote on these things and they put time and like
Yeah, but
but
like,
give them people a break. Put like 5 notes instead of 100.
I mean, that's the thing. That's why I say up front, like, Gorilla is so good at world building, and look how much effort they put into it. But like, a lot of it just isn't very interesting, and I want it to be. I want it to be more interesting than it is,
Right.
because I like the world they created.
Yeah.
Right.
But it's just like so dense, and there's just too much, and like you could easily, if you read all of that, if you've soaked it all in, you could easily turn a 50-hour game to a 100-hour game, and I just don't. Why would I do that when I could go play another 50-hour game, you know?
Yeah.
Or several other shorter ones. The time is money in this instance.
Or you could cut out a lot of
Absolutely.
fat, turn it into a 20-hour game, but perfect those 20 hours.
So much
Yeah.
better.
I mean,
Oh,
yeah, that would be great, but
Chrono Trigger it, baby.
that's open world game design for you. The Vantages were pretty cool because they gave you an insight into what the old world was, and that's also kind of how you can find out that the game takes place in like Colorado, Arizona, and Utah.
Yeah.
Those Vantages give you a look into the old world, and there's some landmarks you can recognize. And they give you an audio log that kind of has its own plot line going, but since I found all of them out of order, I didn't really follow it. But yeah, I mean, I would say the best collectible was the tall necks, because they
yeah,
actually had a use and they were cool.
totally.
The flowers were totally useless.
Yeah.
Like, they're just they're framing them as like these mysterious flowers that are like spreading seeds to like grow more vegetation, but like they're just metal flowers that you find and then sell to a guy. Like, that's the
Yeah.
problem with the collectibles in this game, is like they're just not very useful.
Sometimes I'm okay with useless collectibles if they lead me to a part of the map that I wouldn't have otherwise discovered that actually has like some interesting stuff to look at or to interact with. But in this case, it wasn't. That wasn't the
No,
case at all.
yeah, they really more often than not they'd lead you into a place you don't want to be because there's like really tough machines that you don't want to have to deal with, but like they might catch you if you're going for that fucking flower over there.
Yeah.
And I can't believe I'm doing this, but I will because it's the game that came out right at the same time and very similar. But I'll give Breath of the Wild design points on this in terms of like collectible. Well, I don't even know if you can call them collectibles because they're core items to your progression, but like exploring to find, you know, the items that expand your stamina and your heart gauge. Like
Mhm.
it incentivizes exploration by
Yeah,
making you
well,
more powerful in the game, and at the same time, if you choose to use on your stamina, allow you to explore more.
mhm. Yeah, I mean that's always been a thing with Zelda, right? You do get rewarded for exploring. The most this does is give you a box with shit in it. I guess it's
Exactly.
better than
Shit
I
that you
guess it's
can't
better
fit.
than yeah. I guess it's better than Jedi Fallen Order where you just get ponchos.
Ugly
Hey
ponchos.
man, those are some sick ponchos, man. He's
Man,
rocking them.
we've been dipping into the back catalog a lot this episode. Go listen to all our back catalog, guys. We've talked about so many of the games that we brought up.
Yo,
Yeah.
man, it's the reap the spoils lore, dude. Come on.
Yeah, yeah. If you want to talk about Horizon lore, how about we talk about the Reap the Spoils lore for real? Remember those deep-seated opinions we have about fucking ponchos and Jedi Fallen Order?
Hey, I love
Fucking
those ponchos. I didn't say
fucking
shit.
ship skins. Like you never see your ship outside of a loading. So anyway, okay, we're getting off track. Um, and then yeah, the pigments and blue gleam. The blue gleam was pretty cool. It's a new currency in Frozen Wilds that had like some usage, for getting you new gear and stuff. But by that time, I already had the Shield Weaver and wasn't taking it off, so it didn't really matter.
Yeah. There was that one outfit though that you heal over
Yeah,
time.
the
That was
Shield
cool.
Weaver. Yeah,
No,
that.
no, no. The Shield Weaver was from the main game, no? Like where like
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. There was an outfit in that. You're right. I'm sorry.
yeah, like it heals you over time. So like if you get hit, you wind up healing
Yeah, and
anyway.
I think that was like the one that I saw that I was like, ooh, and then I just kept Shield Weaver on anyway.
Yeah.
And you know, let's talk about Shield Weaver because that's a side quest you can get right at the beginning of the game, and that one I actually think is really cool because it that does incentivize exploration. You know, you got to be on the lookout for these power cells so you can get into this armory that has this suit of armor that's locked down, and you think, oh, that looks pretty cool, maybe it'll be useful, and then you find these power cells, get it, and it's like it's a piece of armor that fucking regenerates a shield
Yeah.
over you. Like that's really cool, and it like the incentive there is there.
Yeah, it's the
Mm.
It's
best outfit in the game besides
yeah,
the healing regeneration one.
got me through ultra hard, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But okay, I I didn't put down a final question for this game because Forbidden West is right around the corner. I don't think there's really much I can ask, that won't
Yeah.
be answered in a
And
couple days.
yeah,
But
exactly.
what I will say is like if you do like this world, like yeah, get the strategy guide from Future Press for it. Has a lot more than just like telling you where to go and what to do. There's a lot of supplemental information. There's 2 comic book series.
I didn't even
Um,
know that.
yeah,
Are they good?
I haven't read them yet.
Mm.
I have the whole run of both of them, but
Did they
like
Oh.
tell us why Aaron's a drunk?
I don't know. I know the first one definitely focuses a lot on Talana, and I feel like Erend is a big part of the second one. They're called Horizon Zero Dawn, the Sunhawk, and Horizon Zero Dawn Liberation. I know there's a trade paperback for the Sunhawk out. That the Liberation one's probably coming soon. So like yeah, just to raise awareness that stuff exists, and if you
Huh.
like the world, check it out.
I hope it's
Also,
good because the God of War comic was garbage.
oh, both of the God of War, because there was one around the time where 2018 came out, and then yeah, there was the recent one, Fallen God, which like seemed like it was going to be really good, and yeah, it was garbage. It was terrible. It didn't do anything useful. Um what the other thing I do want to bring up with regards to Horizon is that, like, no matter how you feel about this game, the board game from Steam Forged is awesome, and I definitely recommend it. Like, you can play as a member of each
So if
tribe,
you're
and
sick of playing Candyland with your kids, you got the Horizon Zero Dawn board game. Yeah,
fuck the game of life. We're gonna play
exactly.
Horizon. Yeah, it's like Steamforge makes really good board games, really in depth. They made the Dark Souls board game too, which I think is good, but I think the Horizon one is better. And they play pretty similarly. But yeah, really cool minis, really cool game mechanics. I definitely recommend it.
Nice.
Awesome.
Yeah. So I guess that's the last few things I thought I'd say.
So
Yeah.
what do I score this game?
Yeah, what's the Kwasnicki rating on
So
this bad boy?
Kwasnicki rating again, keeping in mind everybody, I use all 10 numbers
Yeah,
on the
we know.
scale, 5 being
Yeah.
average.
All right.
I think this game sits at a solid. I can't decide either a 6.5 or a 7. The combat I think really saved it for me in the open
Okay.
world and those encounters, and not even just the design, the potential that was there, and the fun I had with the majority of the enemy design. Like Mark was saying, the variety of enemies that you encounter, um, and a lot of the in between stuff felt like padding. I'll give it a 6.5. It's not a bad game.
6.5.
It's not a bad game. It's better than average. It's definitely a lot to praise in terms of, like Mark was saying, the world building and the design and the atmosphere. Guerrilla Games is good at that. And the soundtrack is all right. Like I don't think it wasn't.
Yeah.
It's
It
nice.
wasn't like
Yeah.
it was. It wasn't like memorable, but like it was nice to listen to
It's not
while I
like
played it.
Sifu's.
Yeah,
No,
but
Sifu's got some sick
Yo,
bangers. Let me
I'm
tell you
so
what.
obsessed with that game. It's
That
crazy.
fucking soundtrack was pretty cool. Yeah, we didn't talk about the music on Horizon. And I feel like I won't be able to judge Horizon's soundtrack until I inevitably listen to my vinyl box set that I got, because of
Of
course I
course you
could.
did.
Of course I did. Because then I can really hone in and listen to the music and just soak it in. But like, outside of the main track, which the main theme of the game, which I got so sick of by the
You
yeah,
know, you just
enough.
reminded me. I forgot to mention how dope the montage was from Aloy turning from a little kid to an adult. Like
Yeah,
he
you
like
know what?
rolls into adulthood. That montage was awesome. Not like
I mean,
Rocky, obviously
it's
not Rocky levels, but
it's like you
still.
guys said earlier in this episode. Like, the prologue stuff had like some of the strongest storytelling, and yeah, that moment was really cool. It was
Yeah.
almost like the game would have been better if it was an open world.
Honestly, I
I
can't
don't
disagree.
disagree.
Aside from like the random robot encounters, they still could have had like a linear open world like God of War where there was like sections or
Yes,
something.
I would
yes,
call I wouldn't call that I like the phrase wide linear for something like that, and
Yeah.
I don't know how well that would have worked for Horizon Zero Dawn. It's really hard to say, but I do think they an alternative to an open world design, or at least honing it in a little bit, would have been very nice.
Yeah. And I just want to say, like, Horizon Zero Dawn was my game of the year in 2017. When it didn't win, I literally cried. So that's how much I loved this game at the time. Like when I heard
And
like the orchestra of like that song that we keep very disgustingly humming, I literally was so moved by it because I was so into this game, and the fact that going back to it, I feel so like salty and soured about it, and I have more criticisms. It's just how much I want like the game to be better because there's so much potential for it to be like a perfect game, but it's just not because it's being held back by all of these gamey like RPG elements that don't need to be there, as we mentioned in the thing. So
right.
I'm coming from a place of love when I make
And
these critiques.
a lot of that stuff also comes down to like preference, like I'm sure other people love the
right.
open world stuff and love the RPG elements, and like, it's just like I feel like, as if you play as many games as like we do, or at least Delilah and I do, you get tired of certain things, and open worlds is definitely one of those things where I know I'm sick of it. I'm sure Delilah is too.
Yeah.
And like,
And it's also
it's
a
awesome.
preference thing where I would have preferred this not to be a post-apocalyptic Earth. I would have preferred it to be
Right.
like a complete out of this world fantasy, completely change the tone to non-realistic, go full heavy metal, fucking Tarna the Terrakian. You guys probably have no idea what I'm talking about.
I know heavy metal, but you lost me after that.
Tarna is the main cover character that rides the pterodactyl, and she has a sword and bikini armor and just fucking slays all the bad guys.
Gotcha. Okay, understood.
Hmm.
Okay. All right. What do you say we wrap this bad boy up?
Yes.
All right, Delaila, what you doing? What you working on?
You know, my ass was trying to stream Dying Light 2 on Twitch this week, but it's broken. Fuck that game. I want a refund so bad. I'm so salty about it.
Yeah.
I've never been so pissed off because, like, I love Dying Light. So instead, I'm streaming GTA San Andreas until Friday when Horizon comes out. Hopefully, it comes on time.
Hopefully this episode is out before.
Yeah, probably won't be. Yeah, so I guess in that case, I'll be streaming Horizon Forbidden West and Elden Ring.
I mean, regardless of what she's streaming, just go check out Delaila on Twitch at Assassina_San.
Yes.
On Twitch? Okay. Yeah. I know it's either dash or underscore. I never know which
every
one
time.
Has which, you know?
Yeah.
That's the problem. I know Twitter's underscore.
Yeah, it's if it doesn't allow me to do a dash, I do an underscore. So you can find me anywhere there, YouTube, all that shit.
Yeah. Jason, you working on anything?
Yeah, I got all my melee DPSs in Final Fantasy 14 over 50.
Hey.
Wait, did you really?
Yeah.
I didn't. You've been playing it pretty regularly?
No, I haven't played it because I've been playing this, but I got
I
got my ninja to 50, which means that all my melees are at least 50 or above. 290s. I got to get my Dragoon is 10 away from 90, and I got to get the monk at that too.
I just resubscribed to the game purely so I could do the Valentine's Day event.
Oh, they have that? Cute.
The only reason I did that. The only reason I resubbed. I didn't want to miss the event. For me, what am I doing? I'm doing something. Oh yeah, I write a newsletter every week for From Gamers Magazine. If you go to fromgamers.net/newsletter, you can put in your email address, click that subscribe button, and you'll have me hitting your inbox every Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern, I think.
Nice.
Basically, just top 5 news stories of the week. I do, the release dates that were announced, keep you updated on my life, whatever. Yeah, so go subscribe to that and read my shit. I'm enjoying it. So
nice.
I got something else to plug. I don't know if I can plug it yet, so I'm gonna wait on that.
Ooh, spicy.
Spicy. Twitter handles. You can follow me at Nibelheimian. You can follow Delaila on Twitter at Assassina_San. You can follow Jason on Twitter at SolidQuas, but don't follow him. He forgot he has a Twitter.
They might have deactivated it because it's just inactive. I don't know.
No, they don't. They don't do that. They don't. They just let that shit sit forever. If you like this episode, if you're watching on YouTube, thank you. I'm sorry I called you guys fuckers last month.
No, he's not.
I feel like I'm gonna be apologizing for that forever now. If you're watching on YouTube, thank you. Leave a comment. Let us know what your favorite machine was, who your favorite character was, how much you didn't like the facial animations, whatever. Just leave us a comment. Let us know what you think of the episode, and give it a thumbs up. That would be great. Share the episode with your friends. Subscribe to the channel. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, again, thank you. I did not call you guys fuckers, so I have nothing to apologize to you for. If you like this episode,
you edited it out.
No, I didn't call them. I called the YouTube.
Oh, right.
Everyone else is okay in my book. It's just those YouTube people.
There's only like 5 of them anyway.
We don't take kindly to your folk around here. You're YouTubers.
Yeah, if you listen on Apple Podcasts, please rate and review the show. 5 stars preferred. Tell us what you like. Tell us what you don't like. And share the show, with your pets, with your, I said pets first, your friends and your family, and then your pets,
Yeah.
Have your priorities straight. Clearly I don't. And then, Jason, what's our next episode on? I think everyone already knows, but
Horizon Forbidden West, which is coming out in like a week or whatever. Not even a couple days. Yeah, a couple days.
At the time of this recording, it comes out at the end of the week. I'm hoping to have this episode out just before it comes out, so we'll see. So yeah, Horizon Forbidden West is our next game. So go play that and then listen to that episode when it's out. Thanks for listening.
Bye.
Bye-bye, folks.